This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Stars tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for January 14th, 2022. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling feed or on our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. If you would like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast and set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your pal, Iron Mike Spears, joined alongside my co-host and friend Case Lowe. And Case, it's Unit Shuffle season. Let's get into this.
Oh, Mike, I'm tired. This week, the amount of Dragongate coverage, the amount of plots I have tried to track, the amount of stories that I have tried to untangle the lore of. It's been a very long week, and I'm very excited to finally break all of this down.
This kind of worked out for our benefit, us recording on a Friday afternoon, given that usually we record on Tuesday. That was the dead day between the opening shows in Kyoto and Osaka and the doubleheader. So, you know, we at least have had 24 hours to let everything sit, everything breathe. There's not another show until next weekend, but now it's time for us to try to make sense of what happened in the first week of Dragongate 2022. It's just insane. Like, it's something that haven't been through. I'm trying to think of the big unit shuffles while I've been a fan. So pretty much everything since 2008. Having everything kind of congeal the way it did. I know congeal is kind of a gross word, but that's the first one that comes to my mind. It's kind of remarkable to see how everything for the last 18 months has kind of boiled up and was tied together with a nice, neat bow, and now we're dealing with all the fallout and whatever aftershocks that come from that.
I said it in my review, which is up at voicesofwrestling.com, a written review of the January 12th Gurukun Hall show by me. Mike covered the January 13th show, so we have more expanded coverage in written form with star ratings and whatnot on voicesofwrestling.com. But what I said to close out my review was that the last hour of the January 12th show, which was all of the R.E.D versus Masquerade stuff and the Shun Skywalker turn and Eita and Kaito Yoshida being booted out of their own unit, one of the most satisfying hours of pro wrestling that I have ever consumed. And it wasn't that the two matches that closed the show were great. It's everything in between made it worth it to cover this promotion as closely as we do. Even people that I talk to that watch this promotion in a very casual way, that jump in for every Gurukun Hall show, or maybe even every other Gurukun Hall show, and then they watch the big five throughout the year. But as long as they kind of keep tabs on the promotion, they were thrilled with the results. 2021 was a year of a lot of waiting and a lot of holding patterns and a lot of times where people were able to check out of this promotion because while the matches were very good, it's not like there was a ton of news happening on every show. And for them to start the year with that January 12th Gurukun Hall show, to grab headlines, to make it, this is the most talked about Dragongate show, I think, in years. I mean, I felt like more people were talking about this show than they were the Yoshino retirement show in the summer. The way these shows are talked about are spoken of in very different lights, but I feel like I had more people reach out to me and ask me, hey, what do I need to see? What's going on here? What's the deal with this for the January 12th show? Than I'm probably this show more so than any other show post OWE split in 2018.
The only other times that I would say in recent memory, it seems like that we've had peaks like this, like Yoshina's retirement, as you said, completely different thing. I would say Ultimo returning at Kobe World in 2019 was also seen as a big moment because you also had that and you had Pac and Benkei. And that was seen, at least amongst a big group of international fans, big moment. Really, it, with Pac coming back, that had a spike, and that was also post OWE split. But
yeah, that certainly hit a different pocket of fan where
right,
just because of where
exactly.
Pac had been there, it was, I mean, there was a lot of bad coverage of Pac showing up at a Japanese indie or why is he here and not in New Japan. And I was very much on the record from day one after he left the WWE of going, him in New Japan is not out of the realm of possibility, but when he pops back up in Japan, it's going to be in Dragongate first. And I explained that to people who would listen to me, and unfortunately, not enough people listened to me because some were baffled when he showed up and he attacked Shingo Takagi and joined R.E.D. and proceeded to have one of the great Dreamgate runs of all time that, led them to Benkei, and Benkei led them to Doi, and Doi led them to Eita. And oh my God, here we are now. It went Eita and Shun. And then who beat Shun for the title? That was Yamato, and then Kai, and now we're here, and Shun's and R.E.D., and oh my God, what is happening?
So really, in a way, everything since the OWE split has led to January 12th, 2012, or 2022, when you think about it, because that Pac title run, KZ's big defense, then KZ, then you had Shun Skywalker, then you had Benkei. And then you had Dragon Kid in there, but Dragon Kid's Nakoya native. They love beating him in that arena. So I'm disregarding that for the sake of this exercise. But in a lot of ways, everything since then led to just this. The best way to describe it is like a unit implosion that occurred. And something that you take what was the high storyline of last year in Masquerade versus R.E.D., and you immediately go, all right, Masquerade is for all intents and purposes is over. Shun has defected. R.E.D. has won. Eita and Kaito Yoshida have been ejected. They claim that they are the real or true R.E.D., but for all intents and purposes, we have a brand new heel unit. It'll probably get renamed sometime soon. And it feels like that this is like the end of that page, and at the same time, it's also continuing the heel continuity in a way that this could have been a time for R.E.D. to lose a disbands match and start up a new heel continuity, but I think they have found a strong way to do that with what happened on the 12th.
Yeah, like I said earlier, just a completely satisfying way of unraveling chaos. Now, I should mention before we start breaking down all of these unit moves, as of the time we record, which is the mid-afternoon on January 14th, if you go to the official Gaora Dragongate website where they have the roster listed out and they list it by unit, Masquerade still exists at this point. It's Kota Minoura, Jason Lee, and La Estrella. Dragon Dia is no longer in Masquerade, and of course, Shun Skywalker now listed under the R.E.D. section, whereas Eita and Kaito Ishida are listed without a unit. So I know we had some questions in the Voices of Wrestling Discord about where Masquerade stands. As of this recording, the company is still acknowledging them as an official unit, so we will do the same.
Right, yeah, and I think even in my spreadsheet, which I posted some screenshots of, I still have Masquerade as existing, but their future is pretty short. I think it's fair to say. But yeah, the interesting thing about this, and I will post a screenshot of the website. It's gaora.co.jp/Dragongate. I'll post a screenshot for it. It's very fascinating with me because they do kind of set everyone up in like their unit ranking in a way that in the unaffiliateds right now, it's Ultimo, Dragon Dia, and then Yoshioka leading off there, which I find incredibly fascinating.
Yuki Yoshioka his body looks like he's about to wrestle Kobashi for the Triple Crown title. Like, we'll talk more about Yoshioka later, but he, in a weird way, Mike, and let the record show in case the Yakuza's listening, I did not do this, but 2 weeks ago, Mike bashed the Showa system and was very negative on the way New Japan develops young talent. Not me, not I, just in case anybody's listening, that was all Mike Spears, but in a weird way, Yoshioka just had this like incredibly fruitful excursion where he goes to Mexico right when COVID hits. That's obviously not ideal, but then he comes back under the hood for a year. But when we finally see his actual body for the first time since the early months of 2020 in a pre-COVID world, it's like, oh my God, this guy did exactly what this system is designed to do. He exited the system, originally a youngster who was a bigger guy on the roster, but not incredibly muscular. And he came back fucking jacked, quite frankly, and now looks like he could win the Dreamgate title at any point in his career.
2 points of contention I would like to raise here, Case. Just two. One, on a previous show we had with Jay pointed out that Yuki Yoshioka does have Showa good looks. So him coming back like this makes perfect sense. And
what a strange but specific and right on the money compliment. That I do not remember Jay saying that, but that is really funny.
And two, the most Dragongate thing possible. He looks like crap when he was unmasked, and then the next day he has a fresh haircut. He shaved off his weird chin thing, or he trimmed it up there. He got a little bit of tan, not enough tan in my opinion. Like, there's some people on this roster that really need to. Me and Aaron Bentley are espousing people need to do the GTL lifestyle, and so some people need to take after Benkei on this roster. That's all I'll say here. But he comes out looking like $1 million, and holy crap. Like, that's the most Dragongate thing possible, Case. Like, less than 24 hours, you're wearing your weird goth like mini suit that you had with like the AirNet dry fit on, and then you come out and you look like an absolute star.
It's like, Extreme Makeover Dragongate Edition, and Ty Pennington killed it this time around as well.
That's a name I have not heard in like 15 years. Case.
I love that I didn't have to look it up. I had that one in the holster somehow. I was ready to fire that one off.
You were like 5 when that show was on air to begin with.
Yeah, but I have gross media consumption habits.
I think that can describe both of us. But let's get into this week's program. We're going to be talking a lot about the unit shakeup stuff. Just had to lead off with a quick taste of that there. They had 4 shows this week. It was a busy week in the Dragon system. They had shows on the 8th and 9th, their traditional start-off shows in Kyoto and Osaka. We'll run through those cards. Those shows won't be up on the network for very much longer. And then we'll spend the rest of however long it takes for us talking about one of the biggest doubleheaders in Dragongate history. I mean, recent history. I mean, I just said it was like start of a new era. So I should stick with my tagline there, Case. But let's talk about Kyoto and Osaka leading off. Kyoto was on the 8th. Odds are by the time you're listening to this, you might be able to check it out if this gets out early, or it's just recently removed from the network. Osaka will be up on the network until the 16th. So you still got some time on that. Just off the top, because it really does feel like you have to handle the Osaka and Kyoto shows as one and then talk about the Tokyo one. So just in general, what were your thoughts about the first 2 shows of Dragongate's 2022?
They were really fun shows. I think if there's anything from these shows that, let's say you skipped them, you just dove into the cork and you're wondering what you missed, the consequential stuff on these shows was the Shun Skywalker and Masquerade versus R.E.D. stuff. So if you've seen the cork and hall, it might not exactly be essential viewing. I thought the Kyoto show was a lot of fun, and the Osaka show, I had 2 matches at 4 stars. So there was a lot to like between these 2.
Yeah, the nice thing about like the Kyoto and Osaka, like TV stops, not like the Osaka Champion Gate shows, but the nice thing about these are that usually, yes, it's not the full production that you're going to get in Korakuen. Just we might have new listeners this week. The only shows each month you should count on having commentary and full production are Korakuen's Tokyo shows. The rest of the shows are single cam, no audio. Sometimes there might be some differences there, but for these 2 shows, the nice thing about them is they're always so watchable. And if you're judicious with your fast forward and you know what, you're like, oh, they're going to be doing the opening talk now. It's going to be 8 minutes from now. I can skip this. You can get through both of these shows in about 2 hours each.
Should we mention here, because I don't think we've actually had a chance to talk about it on the podcast. The last time we recorded, the announcements for Kyoto and Osaka were just made, and those announcements were that these 2 shows in particular, they were going to announce the talent that was appearing on the shows, but they weren't going to announce any matches. And as we learned very early on in the Kyoto show, that Going forward, until otherwise noted, Dragon Gate is going to be running what we've dubbed essentially these mystery vortex format shows where title matches will be announced ahead of time, and any matches that wrestlers agree to ahead of time will be announced. But undercards, or in the case of probably these Kobe and Kyoto and Osaka and Fukuoka shows, it is going to be entirely a mystery up until bell time. What do you think about this strategy, Mike?
I'm of a couple minds about this. First and foremost, I would be stunned if this is the strategy coming out of after Champion Game Memorial Gate. I think they'll get back to full cards, just because this seems to be something to keep the unit shuffle at the top of people's minds. And also, you want to, at least for the native fans, you want to list who all is going to be there, because Dragon Gate's back doing, as short-sighted as it may be, back doing like signings and stuff. So that you don't want to have someone in Kyoto who's been waiting for a year and a half to get their UT autograph, and then doing a mystery vortex show and not list that UT is not going to be there, and they're going to be really bummed out. So it makes sense, the strategy about this. Business-wise, I think we've seen kind of like it's kind of hard to evaluate after 1 week. Like, this was the first Osaka show since Gate Destiny, so like that one kind of peaked high attendance wise. Kyoto, they run Kyoto a lot, so like the first show of the year was a big jump up, and then Tokyo with the back-to-backs did not do as well as they have been, but I can't ascribe that to this secret base format. I mean, there were all these shows in Tokyo area, and even though Dragon Gate's fan base is singular in one way, so they kind of do their own thing, you still have a lot of exhaustion from New Year's festivities. You still have COVID. So I don't know if it's going to hurt necessarily at the box office, but I'm willing to kind of wait and see. And then my last thought about this is, let's be honest, Case. How many times were we getting to a point before a Big 5 major show and we still didn't know the undercard, and eventually we just like put our hands up and just wrote about the title matches?
Yeah, even without the system, Dragon Gate is actually a company that is incredibly hard to record audio previews or write written previews for.
Yeah, so for like, at least for like our work standpoint, I don't see as much really to that really affects us that much, other than like if this ends up being the middle of July and we don't have a Kobe World undercard. To be quite honest, like week in, week out for like Tokyo shows, it might burn 5 minutes on an episode where like, oh, let's see how let's take a look at what's happening in Osaka this week, and anything out there interests you. Like, that's like the big change I feel like in my life.
Yeah, so when this first got announced, I was not very happy about it. I actually was pretty upset throughout the first part of the week thinking about this. I just don't I don't like it logistically. You know, historically in professional wrestling, people want to buy tickets to shows where they know what's going to be on the show. Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday were business flops. I don't even like X's in a main event. You know, if it's so-and-so against so-and-so and X, I don't like that at all. I like having the matches known ahead of time. And then I reached out to someone in Japan and I talked to them about it, and they brought up the good point that Mike just mentioned is, look, this is a promotion that only announces their cards normally 2 or 3 days ahead of time. You know, most of their tickets are sold before any single match is announced. And that talked me off a ledge to some extent, but I still had a lot of concerns about, well, okay, so what are we going to do for Champion Gate? Are we just going to show up and wait to see who Kai is defending the belt against? And then once Jay had the clarification on English commentary that, hey, title matches are going to be announced ahead of time, there's still going to be some leeway in that if wrestlers agree to wrestle on a certain show, that will be promoted before the date. But a lot of the undercard stuff is going to be a mystery for a long time. That I don't mind at all. I actually really liked the execution of these shows as a result of that. I don't know what it's going to mean from a business perspective, because Kyoto was way up from December, and in Osaka number 2, which they hadn't run since September 11th, that SB Kento versus Keisuke Okuda match, attendance was up in Osaka as well. But like Mike mentioned, Korakuen was pretty down both nights. You know, they had hit a nice little groove of selling out that 714 capacity setup that they've been running. It was a little over 500 for the first night and a little over 600 for the second night. I look at those as disappointments just because in any sort of capacity setting that Dragongate imposes on themselves, I expect them to sell out Korakuen Hall. That is the standard that they've been living up to for so many years now. So we have 2 positive results and 2 negative results coming from this. We need a bigger sample size to judge how this is going to affect their business going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be something to keep tabs on, I think. But how long do you think they're going to do this? Because I'm really of the mindset that they're just doing this during the unit shuffle, and then when things come to some sort of stability, and especially around when they need to start building up stuff for the cage, they're going to kind of drop that.
I think it's going to last much longer than you do. I think this is something that we might be seeing up until Kobe World. Now, part of that could be our difference in what we believe is going to be the result of that GM position. I think you are of the belief that somebody besides Ryo Saito will be sliding into that role at some point. I think Saito's kind of locked into there for the time being. I think this is something that will extend past Dead or Alive and again, possibly into Kobe World.
Yeah, I just look at Saito and like he's played like a bumbling character, and if someone really wanted to play lawyer to his general managing, I mean, he's had a lot of stuff blow up in his face, and I could see eventually him getting flustered and he's like, I'm done, and then we hear it's lightning in the jungle. But like that is the thought in my mind. I know Masato Yoshino has a very successful gym that he started up, and that requires a lot of time and focus, but I just can't. It just makes too much sense to me. Masato Yoshino is general manager down the road, and until there's like something definitively saying yes or no, I'm of the belief that eventually we're going to get there.
Yeah, look, it would certainly be a fun way to get out of this situation. If you have Saito booking all of these Mystery Vortex shows and it eventually blows up at his face, he loses his role as GM and they need somebody else to come in, whether that person is Yoshino or Ultimo or Yagi gets his job back, although Yagi is in trouble with me after this week, and I'm not very happy with referee Yagi. There's a number of things they could do, and perhaps that is the end of these Mystery Vortex cards, is Ryo Saito losing his job. I also just think it's Dragongate, and one day they could go, okay, we're announcing matches 1 through 8 from now on, and here's what they look like, and I wouldn't have a complaint either way.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Just going through these Kyoto results, I'm just going to read them off here, and then we can get into the matches we're really into. In KBS Hall, again, this show will be pulled from the network on the 15th. Opener, Natural Vibes versus High End. High End won. Yamato got the fall over Kamei. Other people in the match: KZ, Sasumi Yokosuka, Dragon Kid, and Benkei. Match 2, High End versus Future. Kagetora got the win on Fuda. Okuda and Fujiwara were the other people involved in this. Special Royal Sambo by Goban, the company that always has the T-shirts at the Kyoto shows. La Estrella won it with the Planet Fly on Maria. Fuji, Shisha, Mochizuki, Stalker, Sachi, Problem Dragon, Tamanaga, the Hashi brothers, and Shoya Sato were in it. We had Natural Vibes versus Unaffiliated. Shimizu got the win on Takumi Hayakawa with the big boss press. It was Ginki and UT, and then Ultimo and Kanda for the other side. We had Unaffiliated versus R.E.D., Kai, BB Hulk, Hyo, and the unaffiliated side was Doi, Yoshida, and Strong Machine J. Hyo got the win on Strong Machine J. And then we have our main event, Masquerade versus R.E.D. It was Masquerade getting the win. Shun was on another one. He brought out everyone's gear this time. It was Shun Skywalker, Kota Minoru, Jason Lee, Eita, Kaido Ishida, and SB Kento. Hyo accidentally hit Ishida with powder towards the end. And then we had more just Masquerade walking out on Shun Skywalker and Kyoto. This was not the show you had notebook matches on, right?
No, I did not. I really enjoyed the Ultimo, Kanda, and Hayakawa versus Horiguchi, Shimizu, and UT 6-man, and I gave the main event 3 3/4. I thought that was a really, really fun match.
Yeah, I had the opener and the main event at 3.5, but nothing on this other than the Battle Royal was below 3 stars. It was a fun opener of the year. The more consequential show the next day was in Osaka, R.E.D on 2. It'll be off the network on the 16th. opened up with KZ, Big Boss Shimizu, and Jackie Funky Kamei getting the win on Naruki Doi, Takashi Yoshida, and Yosuke San Maria. It was KZ with the elbow smash. Masaki Mochizuki and Gema versus the Ihashi brothers. Masaki Mochizuki got the win with a twister on Ishin. Natural Vibes versus Unaffiliated. It was Susumu, Ginki, and UT versus Ultimo, Jason Lee, and La Estrella. It was Jason Lee getting the win on Ginki with a maximum driver. Unaffiliated for six-way tag was the fourth match. Don Fuji, Yasushi Kanda, and Benkei, the veterans, going up against Fujiwara, Sato, and Hayakawa. Benkei powerbombed Hayakawa through the mat. We had Shun and Kodamin Nora versus Eita and Hyo. And Masquerade kept on their winning ways as R.E.D. could not get on the same page, mainly Eita and Hyo. Eita managed to dump the most powder I've ever seen in my life on Hyo for the finish, to the extent there was still powder in the ring in Tokyo after that. And then the main event was High End versus R.E.D. It was Kai, BB Hulk, Kaito Ishida, and SB Kento versus Yamato, Dragon Kid, Kakator, and Keisuke Okuda. Yamato gained the win on SBK with the Frankensteiner of the Almighty.
Yes, so the last 4 matches on this show, if you start with the Jason Lee, Lastre, and Ultimo versus Natural Vibes tag, I went 3.5 on that. I went 3 3/4 on Benkei, Don Fuji, and Kanda versus the Rookies, and I went 4 stars on both Minoru and Skywalker versus Eita and Hyo, and 4 stars on High End versus R.E.D. with Yamato pinning SB Kento, which I thought was interesting in the main event. An excellent show. Dragongate always delivers in Osaka, and this was no different. I would say carve out time, especially for that Minoru and Skywalker versus Eita and Hyo match, because I thought the storytelling and some of the spots they did in that match were so, and I do not use this term lightly, but so brilliant. And unfortunately now we've seen the progression of that. It might be a moot point at this point, but in the moment, not knowing what was to come at Korakuen Hall, I adored this match for what it was. It was 8 minutes of phenomenal next level storytelling.
Yeah, and because it was so story intensive and it was basically a prolonged angle, I didn't rate this, but I totally this was a notebook caliber storytelling going on. I mean, Shun came out wearing all the costumes and just looking out like the Michelin Man, taking off a mask, handing someone a mask. No one's interested in the mask whatsoever. Just some awesome character work. And then Eita and Hyo, the way that they've kind of played off the fact that Hyo, he got the big brain after being responsible for the R.E.D. victory over Torimon and the Loser Must Disbands match in 2020 because he won that Battle Royal to make one match. And ever since then, him and Eita really started to butt heads here in a nice subtle way where they would bring it up and something like that Eita would do or something that Hyo would play and would backfire on it, and Eita and Yoshida were getting more and more just frustrated with him and just erupting into that powder attack. Did you notice that Shun had to eat time in the ring just so they could start try to get up as much powder as possible? It was a phenomenal powder attack.
Yeah, no, this was all really good stuff. I was really happy after this Osaka show with pretty much everything that went on. It was just a show that flowed. Some of these, and Osaka's a bigger show than Kobe or Kyoto or Fukuoka, but every once in a while you hit one of those shows that just, even if it's a 2-hour, 15-minute show, it just feels like it's a long time. Nothing totally clicks. Nothing is all that outstanding. And for, us in this position, you watch some of these shows, you go, okay, well, how am I going to talk about this? How am I going to make this interesting? And this Osaka show, again, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because of what happened in Korakuen, but this is one of those shows that if we were just reviewing this alone, I could talk about this show for an hour. There's a ton of stuff that I loved here.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where, one of my favorite matches on this show was that Ultimo Trios match, and it just was getting to see Jason and UT in there, and then it just was the right balance of jokey and working with it, and it just was such a nice match. But of course, just up and down these Osaka shows, I mean, just again, you can watch this in 2 hours. The wrestling, there was more complete wrestling with the exception of one match and Korakuen on this Osaka show, and it was just an absolute blast. I mean, just the state of the futures kids at this point, being put into these matches now and are just not not a bit out of step, and most of them have just been pro for a month and a half, and it kind of breaks my brain.
How about Workhorse Ultimo working now Noah in Dragon Gate and being really, really fun in the process? And I talked about it the last time we recorded about how that gif of Ultimo on the Noah show blowing up the way it did really annoyed me, just because it shows that Dragon Gate is not on as many people's radars as you would hope. And I certainly hope that somebody Googled Ultimo and saw that he was still working here and is now watching Dragon Gate because of him and listening to this show because they got interested in that Ultimo gif. Because, when he came into this promotion 2.5 years ago, I was really, really scared of the atmosphere that he was going to bring with him and what he could mean for the long-term future of Dragon Gate, because Ultimo Dragon, while he is by many accounts a lovely, lovely man, has one of the craziest egos of anybody to ever exist. And I don't even mean that as a slight. He's Ultimo Dragon. He should carry himself like a walking god, but it is what led to the exodus of Toriyama and then becoming Dragon Gate. And for Ultimo to have just almost nestled himself, that's the word I want to use, is the way he's just nestled himself into this fun undercard position where it's not like he's going out there and killing himself, but he also is showing effort on these undercards, and he's working with guys like Jason and UT, and he's always having fun matches with Genki. This is it's just the best case scenario for everybody involved, not named Shima and not named Magnum Tokyo. It seems like everyone else is having so much fun with this. And quite frankly, I'm okay with sacrificing those two's feelings because Ultimo has just been such a delight in Dragon Gate lately.
I mean, Shima has his Tyrannosaurus Rex title that he's going to be fighting for soon. So, I mean...
That's not nice. That's not the name of that title. Put some respect on the G-Rex belt.
I stand by what I said, the Tyrannosaurus Rex title. And Magnum has his dojos. I mean, their lots in life aren't as bad as it could be. I mean, Shima already working New Japan while this title match is going on. That tells you all you need to know about GLEAT, in my opinion. But
Shima finishing 10th among active wrestlers in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame this year. And
confirms everything. Confirms everything we've been saying for years, Case.
Not even finishing in the top 30 in any other category makes me irate. I thought about that all day at work, about how reporters and retired wrestlers and whatever the other category is are so clueless. And I have written articles about this guy. I talk about him on this podcast every year. I don't know what else to do. I genuinely think outside of Okada, who got in this year, and Punk, who I would have voted for before his AEW return, and I'm stunned he didn't get in this year. I'm stunned he didn't even come close. I really thought he was going to come in, or I thought he was going to get in this year. Other than those two, I think Shima's the most qualified guy on the ballot, and he continues to drop, which is mind-blowing. I don't understand it. I do not get it at all. But this is not the Shima podcast this week.
All I have to say about the awards, just under risk of Aaron Bentley hearing this and punching me in the neck, Shingo Takagi should get the Mariano Rivera treatment next year. That's all I'll say.
Look, I think Shingo has really good odds, assuming New Japan doesn't entirely implode this year, because I think he has hit a level of universal respect to where, and I normally use this in a derogatory way, but I'm attempting to not here, but I feel like even the people that crawl through Squared Circle Reddit, for whatever reason, it clicks with them that Shingo is one of the all-time greats. And perhaps it's just because of the visibility of where Shima has worked and when he's worked that it doesn't necessarily resonate with people that way. But I feel very good about Shingo's chances of getting in.
Yeah, no, I think he probably is the one person from the Dragon system, Dragon Gate, that will be getting in. And I don't count Okada, really, in that regard. I guess UD06 counts. Like, I should be fair. I should put some respect onto Hajime Ohara's name there.
I mean, look, say what you will about Ultimo Dragon. His vision of pro wrestling is everywhere right now. You've obviously got the original trainees that are still going on in Dragon Gate, the T2P guys that are still going strong. Taiji Ishimori, the prize pupil of Toryumon X, was not only a success in Pro Wrestling Noah, but is now a success in New Japan Pro Wrestling. You have the UD06 guys, most notably Okada, who is Okada. And then you look at, this new generation of Dragongate guys who Ultimo doesn't have a hand in training in, but the fact is this promotion exists because of his vision, and they are the number 2 promotion in Japan with as much upward trajectory as any promotion in the world right now, quite frankly, maybe other than AEW, depending on how you think they manage their young talent. It's remarkable what Ultimo's done over a 25-year period from starting the training school in 1997 to now. And I don't know if he gets the credit he deserves for not only the original class of Toryumon, which I feel like everybody points to when they talk about his influence, but the decade that came after that original class and what he was able to do, even if they all didn't work out within the Ultimo ecosystem, obviously with Okada leaving and doing his thing, with Ishimori leaving and doing his thing, they are still products of Ultimo, and it's remarkable. There's nobody with the resume that he has. He is so unique to himself. And like I said, we'll talk about it later when we talk about him and Gurukun Mask and what they did, but it's just really nice having Ultimo around. I'm really enjoying his presence on these shows.
Yeah, and it's something with him that I think that Ultimo, like, we know what we're going to get out of Ultimo. I think that might be something that we're embarrassed by the amount of wrestling we see of his, that we know what we get here, but like the fact that he's able to do this and then go to Noah and everyone go, hey, that's Ultimo Dragon. I remember Ultimo Dragon, everyone going, oh, he still rocks. Like, that is something that, I mean, when you give like his injury that he had to retire for and then come back from, the fact that almost 20 years, I think it's actually 20 years next year since returning, he's still he's not having like his classic J Crown matches. He's not having those Nitro Cruiserweight title matches, but he's like, I mean, he's in his 50s, and you can't think of very many wrestlers at the age that he is, and it's just consistently fun. I mean, it's like Masaki Mochizuki, Takashi Sugiura, and then it's who you're trying to score points with, who you're going to say.
We'll talk about this on a podcast at some point. We've maybe touched on it briefly, but Ultimo before he got that gimmick, really, really fun to rewatch. And I think that period of his career, because at that point he's just a guy in Hamada's promotion, it's worth revisiting or visiting for the first time if you haven't seen it, especially his work against Negro Casas and Hamada's Universal. It's a career that is worth re-examining, just to put him, when you take his business acumen and his in-ring career and his influence, it is truly worth examining just how influential and how great he has been to this industry.
Yeah, it's something like whenever I watch Universal, I just have like such a good vibe feeling. Like, it's such a good time in it. And it's Unmasked Ultimo, and he's doing things. You're like, oh, no wonder he picked Dragon Kid to inherit the mask. Like, it just, like, aside at a certain level, you're like, oh yeah, no, it makes total sense how the next 30 years would pan out for him at that point.
Mike, let's talk about these damn Korakuen Hall shows.
All right, let's do. So these 2 Korakuen Hall shows, the 12th and the 13th, they'll be up on the network until the 19th. They have English commentary with Jay and a bevy of guests, including Kness this time, a more successful call with Yosuke San Maria, Jason Lee, and your Wrestling Observer Ballot 2022 color commentator of the year, Genki Horiguchi. So be sure to check those out. How much fun is Genki on commentary?
Genki's great. I thought Jason Lee was very fun. Jason Lee threw in an Over Generation reference, which anybody mentioning Over Generation is astonishing in and of itself, but it was so surprising to me, and I think it even caught Jay off guard, where he was talking about how Eita hasn't been a babyface in so long, and Jason, who was very fun at Final Gate when he was on commentary, but rightfully so seemed very nervous. This time goes, well, yeah, he hasn't been a good guy since Over Generation. It was like, oh, okay, this man's throwing out some deep cuts now. I love this. I can see how, if you're a newer viewer to this product, perhaps you aren't in love with the Japanese guys joining Jay in the English commentary booth. But for Mike and I, this has become our new favorite thing. Horiguchi is objectively awesome in the booth. It's very cool that Jay was able to call matches with Kness. I'm sure he greatly enjoyed that. And Jason Lee is someone who I would invite every time up. I think he adds a lot in the position that he's in.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to have someone in the middle of the unit shuffle being like asked point blank, is masquerade still a thing? Like that was
Which is a genuinely tough question to answer.
Yeah. No, but it like adds a flavor with the unit shuffles that we haven't had before. At least as a English speaking fan that knows very little Japanese. So I appreciate it a lot. I just like it just is a showcase of skill being able to have someone that like Jason and Genki are mostly doing commentary in English, but for like Kness and especially Maria, and then the one he did at Final Gate with Punch, where he would call the match in English and then say something in Japanese to get the other person's response, and then translating that back to English was just it's something you don't see in wrestling right now. That I thought was absolutely phenomenal.
No, genuinely incredible. I mean, I really like it. Jay has developed his own style. And I liked him from the beginning, even when he was in that Mike Tenay calling the cruiserweights type role, when he was with either just Larry Dallas or Larry Dallas and Lenny Leonard, and was just there to translate and to give, factual information. But he has become one of my favorite commentators in wrestling, because he has, anybody that's talked to Jay over the years know he is a very dry man. He has a very dry sense of humor, and even just little lines he mentioned on the 13th, the day after Dragon Dia came back, that much like himself, Dragon Dia is using skateboarding to cope with personal traumas, which is just a great line. Like, Jay had a very good weekend of obviously explaining the chaos that was going on, the significance of it, and why it matters, but then doing it in a way that I feel like is true to this promotion, to where even in times of great strife, there's a little bit of humor, there's a certain lightheartedness to it that I really enjoy. So I've always been a fan of Jay in the booth, but this weekend was one of those weekends where I thought he particularly shined.
Yeah, and that was on display with the opener on the 12th. This was Natural Vibes versus High End. KZ, Susumu Yokosuka, UT, and Jackie Funky Kamei versus Yamato, Dragonkin, Big K, and Kagatora of High End. Yamato got the win over Genki Horiguchi with the Galleria. And JFK and Yamato case, like, each week, ever since really like taking that step forward, Kamei has like just started to add more and more like momentum to him, and just like the interactions he had with Yamato in this opener really put some things in about him in a different light for me.
Yeah, he's really settled into this role of being the fun opening match guy, which is a really valuable role to have for a few years. And I've mentioned this in a bunch of writing recently, but Shun Skywalker in 2017 and 2018, people forget that his role was that he would be in an opening 6 or 8 man tag team match. He would let all these guys do some offense. They would spill out to the floor, and then Shun, without fail, would do a giant springboard moonsault onto the pile. And that was kind of his role for a while. And being in that role provided these opening matches with a little bit of juice, with a little bit of fun. It wasn't just 4 old guys or 4 unaffiliated guys having a match to start the show. There was something to look forward to there. And Kamei has taken that role a step farther, where he's not just doing his 1 or 2 big spots and then moving on. He is a vital part of chugging these matches forward, of bringing life and energy into the start of the show, because that is going to be his role. We talked a lot this year, or this past year rather, about Genki Horiguchi and how he just embodies the spirit of this company. Genki Horiguchi is Dragongate. And we've talked recently about how it doesn't seem like it's an accident that Jackie Funky Kamei and UT, people who grew up fans of this product, are following in his footsteps. And Kamei, time after time again, is just putting his foot forward in the best way possible to open up these shows. That is a repeated talking point in the Voices of Wrestling Discord now, is, hey, did you guys catch that opener? Kamei was really, really good here. Him beating Yamato in a chop battle is a thrilling thing to see. Ultimately, it means nothing, but in the moment, that was a really exciting spot, and it's yet another feather in Kamei's cap, and I will give him even more praise as we talk about the second night of Korakuen Hall shows.
Yeah, it's something where with him, and I'll say my piece about him here, and you could give him his laurels in a bit. I've talked about how important it is that he's in a unit with Genki Horiguchi and KZ, but it really stretches further back than that. I mean, Genki is kind of the originator of like this opener energy guy, but I mean, like a lot of people on this roster, like, and it's something that's very important for Dragon Gate. I mean, this was Akira Tozawa's position basically his entire time in the promotion. Was he was the easy person to get the crowd's energy up, and that's a lane that for Kamei probably was not available to him, or that was not the expectation with him when he initially joined Natural Vibes. But like, you're setting up like someone that, I mean, Kamei, still under the age of 22, could be doing this for the next 10, 15 years. And that's so important for this promotion.
Yeah, we talked about it the last time we recorded when we were kind of summarizing 2021, which is an episode I highly recommend listening to if this is your first time listening to Open the Voice Gate, or you parachute in because there is, a bunch of big stuff that happened this week. Our last episode, we went over all of 2021, our awards, what we liked, what we didn't like. And part of what we talked about was, this is the second iteration of Natural Vibes. This was KZ's unit in 2018 and 2019. And when there started to be storyline rumors of KZ restarting this unit at the start of 2021, we thought it might be a red herring and we thought he might turn heel. And then he didn't. And the first few months of this new Natural Vibes unit were pretty dry. Kamei was hurt, and this was before Shimizu joined, and it just didn't seem like the chemistry was all there. But as we've seen from July onwards, this is actually a well-oiled machine, and everything Natural Vibes does right now is really clean. And even if they aren't at the top of the card, even if they aren't in the most important matches, I'm really into everything that Natural Vibes is doing right now. They're a really fun unit, and I think what they're doing now will pay off in dividends in the future, specifically for Kamei and for UT.
Yeah, and it's something that Natural Vibes, unit shift-wise, I can't think of anything you'd want to shuffle around with this unit. Like, everything works here, and everything feels fresh enough that when they got everyone back, there's nothing I would change. I think that this unit rocks, and I don't even know who you would add from the future class in there. I mean, I could maybe see the Ahashi brothers, getting down at the dance, but definitely not Ryufuda or Shoya Sato.
No, I wouldn't touch a thing. I think this unit, as it exists right now with these 6 people, it needs to exist with these people until the unit no longer exists. They can lose a unit disbands match and all go their separate ways, but I wouldn't tinker with this at all right now.
No, I'm totally on the same page with you with that. Second match was a singles match, Takumi Hayakawa versus Big Boss Shimizu. My only note I have for this match is, well, Hayakawa, you tried as you lost to the Big Boss press under 40 seconds.
The second time this has happened, he lost basically the same exact match to Shimizu and Hokkaido at the start of December. Now we see him lose in the same fashion in Korakuen Hall. The question I ask you, and we'll talk a lot about these rookies as we go through those 2 shows, but it's worth mentioning here just because Hayakawa is getting so much spotlight, even if he's losing these matches in under a minute for the most part. We have these 4 rookies. I'm going to not include the Ahashi brothers in this. I think they're a different animal, but Hayakawa, Sato, Fuda, and Fujiwara. Mike Spears, your gut is telling you which of these rookies is going to be the first one to get a pinfall victory?
I think it's going to be Sato. I think that they're going to kind of play up the age, and I think if they haven't concluded the class of 2021, the future class versus the veterans, I think the conclusion is him getting a win on Don Fuji.
Would it surprise you at all? Because I do think that's where they're going with this, is eventually we're going to see some sort of future versus veterans all-out war match where it's going to be either 4-on-4, or if you want to include the Ahashi, 6-on-6. Would it surprise you in that setting if we both agree that that's when the future class is going to get their first win, if Hayakawa is the one to score that pinfall? Because they are teasing that side headlock takeover flash pin to such a heavy degree, and they are putting him in a position where he's losing all of these matches, and he's losing them in under a minute for the most part, but it feels like he's getting stronger. Like, I fear him more every time I see him in a singles match now, even if the result has largely been the same. Now, that might not mean that he is going to, become a star overnight. I still think the short-term play is that Sato is going to be pushed first and is going to be pushed hard when he gets pushed. But I could see them giving the honors to Hayakawa there.
Well, first, Hayakawa does have the first fall of his class. He did beat the Dragongate champion Kai.
I see. I complained about that then. I hated that. I hate that move. Kai needed to pin this geek. That's dumb. We're not counting that. That's not canon.
Well, I mean, he threw the match, so they don't really consider it either. I just like Hayakawa. Like, they have to have him in these squashes because they need to get him over to the crowd. So I don't know if him getting the fall in this proposed match necessarily needs to happen yet for him. I feel like that's something with him that with his size, like that's always going to be the story here. And maybe it's something where like he gets like a gutsy headlock takeover pinfall next month or whenever, and that becomes a thing. But I would hold off on that. I feel like that you want to see how much underswell you can get for him before then he goes on his streak. Like I would think that out of everyone in the class, like until he gets to a point where the crowd is not behind him and the crowd's laughing instead, I think you milk this.
I was re-listening to the podcast we did with Jay over the summer, primarily talking about Masato Yoshino, but I needed to go back and listen to something because I was taking notes on something that we talked about on that show. And Jay mentioned this was before any of these kids had made their official debut. They were just doing the future exhibition matches at this point. But he said on that show, be careful of Hayakawa. He has this little man syndrome where if he is able to figure out a style that works for him, he could get over in a big way. And, a few months into his career, we're absolutely seeing that pay off, that Hayakawa really hit the ground running. And I am still not concerned, but I do think there's a very obvious ceiling there, and I worry about his long-term star power. I wonder what the second stage of his career looks like. We talk about with these Dragongate rookies, they often debut and they kill it for their first 6 months, and then they are given their second task, their second assignment, their second gimmick, and we see a lot of them struggle, and it's a matter of whether or not they can get past that sophomore slump or not. I worry about that with Hayakawa, but also he's been better than expected. He's been so great taking all of these losses that for now I have to give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe there is more long-term potential than I would have initially thought when he debuted.
Yeah, that's fair. Like the size is always going to be something with him, and I think that kind of forces a ceiling on him that, if he gets the crowd connection, I mean, we were just talking about it with Kamei, get the crowd connection, then the world's your oyster in this promotion. So I think it is him kind of figuring out a way for it to be deserved and his style works out in his favor. And I think if that's the case, then, that's when we're like, okay, he's not going to have this ceiling where it's not dissimilar to like La Estrella right now, because that's like the easy, like that's like the head-to-head comp to me right now is him and La Estrella.
Well, if that's the comp, then Hayakawa is going to win that head-to-head battle, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of Estrella, match 3, Susumu Yokosuka, Gamma and Strong Machine J versus Ultimo Mask, the Dawn of Okinawa, Gurukun Mask, and La Estrella. And Gurukun Mask won with a leg roll clutch on Gamma, and Genki Horiguchi have the best time remembering all the various machines.
It was like a segment of Jay remembers wrestlers and Genki just popping for all of these wrestlers. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to listen to. And Mike, the Dawn of Okinawa, Gurukun Mask. Here, I love the way this was said because it's true. He was here to finish off some business transactions. His indie, his Okinawa-based indie, is running Tokyo in March, and he needed to show face at these Korakuen Hall shows, shake some hands, and make some deals. I tweeted it out already. He is a successful version of Jeff Jarrett because everybody always talks about how Jeff Jarrett always lands on his feet and how he can't die and this and that. Gurukun Mask never makes mistakes. This guy is what it would look like if Jeff Jarrett knew what he was doing all the time. He runs a humble local indie and has assessed friendships with the most powerful players in all of professional wrestling. I love this man.
I mean, he was able to book Yamato in a match with Jun Kasai for his Ryukyu Pro show. Like, how can't you respect Gurukun Mask?
we're going to enter a really interesting stage of Yamato's career. And, in Dragon Gate storyline, I think it's really important to mention this. And when we kind of talk about what we think the future is going to hold, I will bring this up again. But Yamato's last Dreamgate run, that run from August to December, he said the entire time that, he was inspired by Tozawa and Shingo and the success they had outside of Dragon Gate. And as a now 40-year-old man, Yamato wanted one last run at the top before this promotion passed him by, before the youth fully took over. And over the past month, we've seen him lose that title. We've seen him wrestle on a hard hit show with Minoru Suzuki, and we're now seeing him wrestle Jun Kasai in a tag match in March. I am afraid we are entering Yamato's midlife crisis.
I mean, I've seen worse wrestler midlife crisis than doing a show for your friend where you're wrestling against you and Kasai.
That's pretty bad. It's not good.
I mean, he could decided to take a tour of the extended Dragon System, go see what Secret Base is up to.
God, that'd be great. That would be the one way to get me to watch Secret Base. I don't even know if those shows they don't make tape, do they?
Oh yeah, they sell DVDs.
Oh, God, that's dark. I don't know why. I would rather if you had said, no, nobody films these shows than they have DVDs.
I mean, they did like a 70-person house at like Chiba, at like Shinchiba with Men's Teho on top.
Well, I think this Ryukyu Dragon Pro show in Shinjuku Face, which is just where Kyushu Pro, another business partner of Dragon Gate, ran. Kyushu Pro sold out the maximum number of tickets they were allowed to sell. I would expect the same for Ryukyu Pro. I'm stoked that Gurukun Mask is now expanding his business, and he was fun in this match. It was nothing undercard match, but we did get the announcement of KZ and UT wrestling on that show, as well as what Mike just mentioned, Gurukun Mask and Yamato versus Takashi Sasaki and Jun Kasai. That match is nuts.
Yeah, I think next time we do a buffet, if that match has already happened, we're going to be talking about that one case.
This is true. I know our man who feeds us Ryukyu Dragon Pro footage, I know he's listening, so March 4th, we will definitely need a link to that show. He's a good man. He is the one man that takes time out of his life to send us Gurukun Mask matches, and I really respect him for that.
Thank you, Adam.
He's a good man.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about some happy things, Case, because we got to talk about Yagi's big fuck up here. It was another singles match. This was Keisuke Okuda versus the guy he inspired, Ryo Fuda. And just the finish was Keisuke Okuda pinning Ryo Fuda after Ryo Fuda went out in the sleeper hold. Like, I guess it's something that, like, as kickboxers, they're like, all right, let's not hold back here. Let's go for it. And Okuda had his sleeper hold that he usually does to set up the PK on really tight. Fuda went out. Yagi did the arm drop thing. And then at 3, he did not call for the bell. He waved it off there. Okuda tried to like lift him up, thinking like, okay, maybe Fuda was subtle about it. And instead Fuda was unconscious for a second. And then Okuda quickly pinned him for a 3 count. Yagi fucked up. There's no other way to put it here.
So removing the finish from this match, which I want to talk about in just a second, but even before that, I was not a fan of this match, and I explained it in my review that we've seen so many great moments and so many fun matches between this current class of rookies and the veterans on the roster, because it seems like even though the veterans are winning, pretty dominantly at times, those matches are really fun and the rookies get to shine, and it fits the tone of this promotion. There is a certain vibe to rookies versus veterans matches that Dragon Gate has been able to nail. I think it's one of the things they do best, and this is a company that, I obviously like most of what they do. This match, I just didn't like it at all. I felt like Okuda went in there and bullied him, and not that he took advantage of him, because I don't want to blame Okuda for the finish. I don't think that's fair. It seemed like a freak thing. Judging from the fact that he was standing up to go to his penalty kick, I don't think he intentionally meant to choke out this kid, but there was just a certain bitterness to this match that seemed very out of place in the context of Dragongate. It just seemed mean-spirited and a little too much like something you would see in All Japan or in Noah, where they really take advantage of their rookies. And for the most part, I like that stuff. I love watching, Tenryu slap the shit out of Kenta. Their singles match in 2005 was one of my personal favorite matches of all time. But it works because it happened in Noah and not in Dragongate. And this just seemed a little too possibly masculine, possibly just too much tough guy energy. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't click with me. I haven't talked to you about it, though. Are we on the same page here, or prior to the finish, were you enjoying this match?
I thought that this match was a little bit more mean-spirited than the usual gut check matches. But I carved that up to the idea of Fuda as a kickboxer, Okuda, we know his MMA background. Maybe they decided just to go in there and go swing. And Okuda was like, all right, we're going to go hard and you're going to take a beating here, but we're going to go hard here. And that was kind of my thing. Like, I was enjoying this match, but it also was one of those things that it did not have the Dragongate vibe usually for these matches. And I think that's why, like, in context, I totally get how you did not like this match for that. I kind of liked the difference that was going on there, and the idea that this could be a way to kind of build up something, because Okuda is one of the more confounding people in this roster, right? Like, he wrestles his style, and if you're able to play into his style, you'll get a great match out of him. But if you aren't going for the bantam style, as we called it, it doesn't always work. So having Fuda there, I think he felt like he could put the foot on the pedal and kind of wrestle the style match there. I just think really the person in all of this, like, even if Okuda was going a little hard in this match, the person out of this who screwed it up was Yagi, and now he has kind of his track record.
It's a bad look for Yagi. I was very vocal in defending him at Final Gate 2020 when Shun Skywalker knocked out Ben K in the main event of that show, because that was a freak accident. And although you would rather just have Yagi count the 3 as a shoot, it's Dragongate. Things like that just don't happen. I talked about it when Masato Yoshino retired, the story that Mike Seidel told me, where Seidel, his second night in the company, he teamed with Yoshino. He ended up, Yoshino was planning on doing a double team spot with Seidel, and Seidel forgot and didn't get in the ring, and Yoshino had to do it himself. And after the match, Seidel went up to Yoshino and he said, hey, my bad, I messed up, but it's all good. Nobody noticed. And Yoshino looked him in the eyes and said, watch me. I don't fuck up. You don't fuck up, okay? This is Dragongate. You don't fuck up. That is the tone that this promotion has set backstage, where you never see these guys mess up. So in the Ben K situation, again, it's not ideal, but I get it. Here, it's a bad look for Yagi, but I do think there's a positive to come out of this, and I'm really curious to see what the next step is here, where Fuda gets choked unconscious by the guy that inspired him to be a wrestler. And once he regains consciousness, he starts crying, and he has to get carried to the back by Ishin Ihashi. And it is, we talk about emotional scenes in wrestling a lot of the time, and that can cover a wide range of emotion, but rarely do we see wrestlers, in particular, guys cut from the cloth of an Okuda or a Fuda or any other dumb jock that you can name, where they are so vulnerable in wrestling. We saw raw human emotion as he was regaining consciousness and getting carried to the back. And that is such an interesting development for Fuda in particular, because we kind of know who Sato is, and he's not going to be the most expressive guy, but he does have his lineage of being obviously a great judoka and a former teacher, so he has that built into his character. Hayakawa is a small little man who's going to use that to his advantage, even though it might not be enough at all times, and he has that built into his character. And we're seeing it very quickly with Fujiwara, that he is sort of this all-around guy who has been dreaming of being a pro wrestler his entire life. Jay has been sure to mention, and I love this story so much, I talk about it all the time now, for his career day in middle school, he went to the Michinoku Pro Dojo. I love that so much, and that's something that I can latch on to him. I really like Fuda as a wrestler so far. I really like his in-ring. I think there's a lot there, but we haven't been able to crack his core. We don't know what makes him tick. We don't really know anything about him other than that he's a kickboxer. And to see him crying in front of the man that inspired him to be a pro wrestler, if they choose to use this and by proxy milk it, because I think that you either have to never mention this again, or you have to make this a thing. And I really hope they go with the latter. I hope they make this a thing, because I think in the long term, it could be incredibly beneficial to Fuda and his character.
Yeah, because Fuda is someone that, at least initially, in my opinion, you had, as you laid out, like the hooks that fans can get into, some of the younger wrestlers, and especially the Futures kid. Like, there's enough reason for the other five. Fuda was the one that, even like when he started debut, he was like, well, he's the kickboxer. And it's like, all right, let's see where it goes to with this. And this could be the moment. Like, now you could really see, like, I loosely like put this in the thread I did on the VoiceGate Twitter. I'm going to be doing updates basically on how the unit shuffle's going. I'm a spreadsheet geek, so expect those. And Fuda is the one that I could really see plug into high end as the Lost Post and like take advantage of that mentor-mentee relationship with Okuda. And then you get Benkei in there, and surprise, you have yourself a Dragongate team right there. And I think that if they decide to tap into it, that's probably the most positive route forward coming out of this.
Yeah, again, I was not a fan of this match from the get-go. I was disappointed in it because I really like the Fuda versus Mochizuki stuff, and I think Fuda is someone who will figure out his entire game at some point. I remain incredibly bullish on his future. Was not into this match, but I do think there's a silver lining in all of this, with possibly breaking that hard shell that he's presented so far and giving him a little bit more depth.
Yeah, like depth is what I'd really love to see coming out of that for him. The next match was the new era Doyoshi, Naruki Doi and Takashi Yoshida defeated BB Hulk and Kai, and it was Yoshida getting an inside cradle on Kai in the post-match. Yoshida brought up that he wanted the Dreamgate shot, and now Kai would have to agree to it because he has a direct pinfall. Kai said, hey, that's a flash pin. We're not counting this. And then Naruki Doi tried to recruit Kota Minoura for the International House of Hot Boys. Minoura was like, just being like, I'm not sure. I want to see what's happening with Masquerade before we do this. And he's like, well, guess what? All these shows are a surprise. Let's team next week. But Minoura turned the ground down yet again because he had too much going on with all that was happening in Masquerade.
Classic shy boy energy from Coach Minoura. I really like this because let's tell it like it is. Coach Minoura is devilishly handsome, and ever since Naruki Doi mentioned that, I have had my eyes on Coach Minoura, and I have quite frankly not been able to take them off of him. I will say I did not love any of this though, and let's talk about Yoshida versus Kai now, because I think once we get to night 2, there's more stuff to be said about the Doi and Minoura aspect of things. So it was confirmed in the Observer that came out today that we are getting Kai versus Yoshida at the next Korakuen Hall show, February 4th, and the winner of that will wrestle Big Boss Shimizu at Champion Gate in Osaka in March. Mike, what is your vibe check on Kai versus Yoshida?
Oh, easy first key. Just put it on the belt right now.
It puts us specifically with this podcast, with the way we review this company, it puts us at an incredible disadvantage because I think especially with me, just because of perhaps the more volatile circles that I was once tweeting in, it is very easy for people to look at me and go, oh, well, he just loves everything that Dragongate does, and he's more of a fan than a critic, and I resent that. I feel like I'm very fair about this promotion. But we are now put in a position where Takashi Yoshida and Kai could go out there and do a spot-for-spot remake of Kobashi versus Misawa from March 1, 2003, and at best, I would only be able to give it 3.5 stars. If they have a good match,
that was what I was thinking. 3.5 stars. Yeah.
If they have a good match, I'm going to have to lie and say it's bad because, first of all, people are going to be so turned off by that. That is going to be a Dreamgate match that people willingly skip, which is mind-blowing. But even like they could go out there and kill it, and I could write this review explaining why it was good and how even though I came in with low expectations, they not only beat them, but they had a legitimately great match, and no one would believe me. It doesn't matter what they do. If I praise a Kai versus Takashi Yoshida open the Dreamgate match, people are going to think I'm lying.
Yeah. And I mean, Kai, I wonder if he's ever going to get that stink off him that he's unfairly slighted for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm much more open to whatever Kai's future is than Yoshida's, because even though, and look, these two, I don't even think they have great chemistry. I mean, their matches on these two Korakuen shows did not light my world on fire, and that certainly makes me nervous for a future Kai versus Yoshida singles match. But if you're watching this promotion, I think you would see by now that Kai, even though maybe he's not our pick to be the Dreamgate champion, he does carry himself like a champion. I really don't have an issue with his reign so far, with the exception of who they're choosing for him to defend the belt against first.
Yeah, character-wise, Kai is perfect as Dreamgate champion. He comes off like the champion. It plays into like his sleaze lord character. The fact that he only really cares about being Dreamgate champion, works as a heel, especially a heel like him, is just something that it's a hard pill to swallow. And I mean, it even is something that they could go out there. Yoshida is, storied history now with how he is sometimes in Dreamgate matches. I say sometimes because he does have there are some flowers that grow out of the poop that comes out of these matches, to be fair. But it's just, it's going to be a tough one. But at least, like, the way I look at this title match case is that they usually have a early year title defense before they get to Champion Gate. Yoshida is fine for that. They like having a one title match in Tokyo Korakuen Hall each year. That works for this. Kai is from the Tokyo area. He draws well in Tokyo. That's fine. My thing is and it's going to be the thing with the whole Mystery Vortex Secret Gate thing is, I hope that there's going to be some stuff on the undercard, and there's going to be stuff with the unit shuffle that allows people to have something to have their teeth sink into.
Ultimately, it's not the end of the world. I wish it was Kai versus Kondo, or Kai versus Fuji or Mochizuki, or even Doi, who I think you could beat at this point, or Susumu, who is always going to be a credible challenger, but doesn't lose anything if he loses. This is the least appealing option, even if it makes sense, and that is a tough position to be in, where you can't get angry about it because the booking is there, and to some degree it's solid, but also it doesn't excite you in the slightest.
Yeah, it's something that I'm able to swallow this pill, but if this was the pill for Dead or Alive, that's when I put up my stink, I guess. Like, I save my ire for that. Something that I picked up on, and I haven't seen very many people comment about this. Did you see how Yoshida was acting in the background when Naruki Doi was talking to Minoura?
I did not. Please fill me in here.
All the while, like, one of the great things about Takashi Yoshida is he's such a expressive personality, and all the while, Naruki Doi getting frustrated that could have been Nora was this, like, I have to get people from my house of boys. I have to get this happening. And all the while, Takashi Yoshida has the please pick me face on right now. And he did the hands up to the praying hands up there. It was perfect. And, it puts a thought in my head talking about unit shuffle stuff. Could the hot boys be a ruse, or could they be heel hot boys? And this isn't a Doyoshi unless Yoshi gets turned on.
Unfortunately, that is very true. I will save my thoughts about Naruki Doi and his future for the second Korakuen Hall review.
All right. That's totally fair. Then we got to third from the top. At the time, it was called the semi-main event, but it was third from the top. This was a future versus veterans match. The Hashi brothers, Shoya Sato, Takuma Fujiwara versus Masaki Mochizuki, Don Fuji, Shuji Kanda, Yasushi Kanda. And Don Fuji had to use the Gato clutch to escape this match with a win and not dropping a fall to his current arch nemesis, Shoya Sato. In case, this was my favorite match of both two shows. I went 4 1/4 on this. I thought this was exceptional.
Yeah, I went 3 3/4, but I certainly do not begrudge you for that rating in the slightest. I do think this is the start of essential viewing on this show. I, you know, you could skip everything up to this point and not miss anything of importance or really anything that great. But if you're going to watch this show, this match absolutely needs to be on the list of things you watch. It is so good, and it is a reminder. And I've mentioned this before on shows we've done before. I think I said this when we did the Greatest Wrestler Ever podcast about the Dragongate guys with Alan Forel last year. Is Don Fuji has this weird career where I think if he wrestled in New Japan or Noah or All Japan, he would be this sneaky favorite of so many guys in the same way, and I love them too, of like Masa Fuji. I think Fuji's one of the 100 best wrestlers of all time, but if you put the careers of Don Fuji and Masa Fuji next to each other, Fuji has to have been involved in more great matches and of similar quality, because Fuji has also been in some of the greatest six-man tags of all time, just like Fuji was. But it comes into this weird thing with Dragon Gate, at least with the way people in our bubble of, English-speaking fandom view it, where his career just gets lost a little bit. It's not this, revered thing that it possibly should be. But watching these matches and watching what Fuji is doing for Sato right now is a great reminder of just how talented the Don Fuji actually is.
Yeah, and it's something where I think Fuji is underrated. And I've talked about this on the show, like where I was like, I think Don Fuji really is one of the top 100 wrestlers of all time because he's able to do things like this. He's able to play comedy. Like he's in one of my favorite comedy matches of all time. The one with Stalker, the final show at Star Lanes. That was incredible. Then he goes out here and has a 4-star match based around this thing. And I think the thing that put it over the top for me, kids, was the fact that the rookies are figuring it out. And if you've watched them from the debut to now, this defends everything I've said about the other dojo systems. These guys have wrestled these people for like the last 2 months. Like, even though they're rookies and all, it's not a feat in logic to believe that you've wrestled these guys a lot. You're younger than them. Eventually, you should at least get a handle on things. And the way that they play this out here is fantastic. And I'll tell you this, Takuma Fujiwara is a madman, and he is going to make everything that Shuji Kondo does look like that he's being hit by a car at full speed, because the bump he did like after the shoulder block, the way that he did for the original was just sick. It was gross, Case. It was like watching someone in a car wreck.
Yeah, the Ahashi brothers, they debuted at the end of September, so we've had 3 full months of them, plus a little bit more. We're approaching 4 months for their careers. It's easy to forget with these future guys because they've been on every show and they've been a vital part of seemingly every show since their debut, that they all debuted at the end of November. We've really seen a month and a half of their careers at this point, and their progression is absurd. It's insane. We talked about when they debuted at Gate of Origin, Fujiwara in his debut match against Kagetora, he was the one guy where we were like, well, that was a good match. He didn't really do anything flashy. He certainly seemed competent, but he didn't jump off the page. And now the popular take, and rightfully so, because I changed my mind on it as well, is that Fujiwara is the one with the most potential out of this class because he can seemingly do anything. You look at the way Sato has progressed, and it's not like it's a night and day difference between his in-ring skill and his debut and his in-ring skill now, but the fact that he has something that he can constantly build to with Don Fuji, and now he's been able to lock Fuji in this cross arm breaker, and it's only a matter of time before he gets him to tap out. It's all so great. These kids are progressing so fast, and they've all, and I lump Fuda into this group, although I do think he's in last place at this point, they have all acclimated themselves to the roster so quickly and so well that now it's hard to imagine a show where these kids aren't going to be on it. And for a month and a half into their careers, that is just a remarkable feat.
Yeah, in case we got the Alcatraz tease that you've been clamoring for since September. Like, I thought that I bought into the Alcatraz finally. I finally bought into that as a potential finish.
Yeah, those kids. Ricky Hashi is just something else, and Ishin is right there, and you're much more into Ishin, or I guess not much more, but you're more into Ishin than I am. I'm a Ricky guy myself, but Oh my God, both of those guys are just absolutely ridiculous. And I can't wait to see what their next step is once they start getting some wins under their belt.
Yeah, and I guess that's something for like the February Korakuen Hall show that will be headlined by Kai versus Yoshida. The fact that I know that there's going to at least be 1 or 2 futures matches, that does a long way with me feeling comfortable here.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, think about, how dry some of these Kyoto shows or, these Fukuoka double shots would be if these kids weren't on the show now. That's what I was saying. They've become a vital part of this roster so quickly, but they feel like they're family already. They feel like they have to be on these shows in the same way that a Horiguchi or a KZ or a Skywalker and Eita does. I mean, obviously they're not on the same level of star power, but in terms of what I look forward to, they are on the list.
Yeah, it's really so much fun. And, they have their intake for the class of 2022. So the cycle begins anew. We'll see if we'll get another 6 for 6 this time. I don't know if that, this is a once in a generation class coming through, but it'll be fun to see.
They were advertising their dojo on that second Korakuen Hall show. Somebody that was watching the Japan feed noted that they are now currently accepting applicants for the class of 2022. So it never stops with them. It never stops.
Sadly, it's worth pointing out that at this time, you have to be living in Japan to do this. So, because I've had people ask me, it's like, how do you join the Dragongate Dojo? And I'm like, well, there's some emails you could send, but like right now, COVID, man, COVID.
I used to be able to tell them, I don't know, talk to Larry Dallas. And then I don't know what that conversation looked like, but it always entertained me thinking about what it could possibly be. Now I can't even do that.
Should we get into the most important 45 minutes of Dragon Gate's last 3 years, with the exception of Masato Yoshino's retirement?
Yes.
All right. So the supposed main event of the show on the 12th was the Open the Triangle Gate Championship match, where it was R.E.D. This was a rematch of last month's Korakuen. R.E.D. going back for the belt against the fractured Masquerade team. They would win the match. So for a bit, R.E.D. held every single belt in the promotion. And we had multiple double champions, as Hyo won with the Aneko Damashi after Shun Skywalker after Kota Minoura turned on him and attacked him with a box attack. So should we just talk about the match itself and then get into everything else, or should we just take this as a whole?
Let's talk about this first. Let's go step by step here. All
right. So this was one of those things where the Mystery Vortex lineup worked out perfectly for this. I really enjoyed this. I was 4 flat on this. I thought that this was just a tremendous piece of storytelling. I know that for you elected to go 3.5 stars on this. I just really thought that they played up the character stuff. The work was great, as it's always been with Masquerade versus R.E.D. And the finishing stretch was just tremendous. And I really thoroughly enjoyed this, especially as like a breakup match. Like, this was a fantastic breakup match.
Yeah, there's so much little stuff, so many little things, I guess would be the proper way to say that. There's so many little things they did in this match that I really enjoyed. There was one spot in particular that I'm going to say it, and it's not going to come across as revolutionary to anybody, but, we've watched a lot of wrestling, and especially in American wrestling, we've seen a lot of big turns in swerves, and a lot of them fall short. They're hollow, and it just doesn't make any sense after the initial shock value is over. But there was one spot here that I thought just summarized this entire situation, especially on the R.E.D. side between Hyo and then Eita and Yoshida, where Shun Skywalker and Yoshida are in the ring, and Skywalker gets whipped off the ropes, and Hyo was on the outside, and he grabs Skywalker's ankles. But because he grabs Skywalker's ankles and slows him down, which is the normal heel move, and you would normally see that, and it would lead to the guy in the ring being able to hit his offense in an easier way, he did that, and Yoshida wasn't expecting it. So Shun hits the ropes, Hyo grabs his ankles and slows him down, but it forces Yoshida to miss a middle kick in the middle of the ring. And that is such a small thing, and hopefully I was able to paint a picture in a way where that makes sense, because I saw that spot and it just blew my mind. That was such a creative thing to do, to show that Hyo and Yoshida and Eita are just not on the same page, because even when Hyo tries to help, it ends up hurting his teammates. And I just loved that. That was one of the many things in this match, on top of, and we saw this a little bit in Kyoto and Osaka as well, where Shun is teaming with these guys and they just want no part of him. They will get in the ring if Shun rolls to the floor, but if Shun tries to tag them in, they try to avoid the tag. It's just stuff like that, maybe explaining it isn't the most mind-blowing thing, but I just don't think you see that level of detail and care in most wrestling. And step by step here, from the entrances in this match through the go-home promo of the next segment, this is like a 5-star hour of wrestling if you all build it into one package. What they did here, they didn't miss a beat. Every detail was accounted for. It was all just so good.
And it's something that it felt organic and earned. It felt like that everything over the last 6 months built to this. Really, everything since the Unit Must Disband match from last year kind of built to this in a way. And it's something that everyone in this match, and especially someone like Hyo, who really only made that step forward, really was the Hokkaido after Kobe World last year, was when he started putting together the Big Brain Act, and then it really kind of blossomed this year. This, in a way, you look at this match, and with the exception of Eita, no one in this match is over the age of 26. And
that's insane. Now, well, how old's Jason Lee?
Oh, I forgot. Jason, I think, is 28. So, Jason, I apologize.
Oh, my God. But that is just insane. Jason Lee was born in 92. So, he just turned 29?
Yeah, so 29. So, he's the same age of Eita.
God. Oh, my God. This company is loaded. It's unbelievable.
It's insane. But, like, the fact that you had these guys in there, and with the exception of Eita, I can make this work now. With the exception of Eita, no one in this match has been around for longer than 5 years in the promotion. That's a remarkable case that they were able to pull this off, and that went into the next 45 minutes. And it just was tremendous stuff.
It was such a satisfying thing to see, where, just to, perhaps if there's newer listeners that don't know exactly how all of this started, Hyo turned heel in 2019. He was unhappy with the inclusion of Keisuke Okuda into the Mochizuki Dojo. He started acting out. He turned heel. But even then, it wasn't until November of 2020 that delayed Kobe World, in which he won a battle royal that set up the opportunity for him to choose any match that he wanted in the company. And it led to the R.E.D versus Toryumon Unit Disbands match. And that came out obviously as a positive for R.E.D. They won the match. And ever since then, we call him the biggest brain in professional wrestling. He's gotten, a crazy idea after crazy idea after crazy idea. And unfortunately for his unit, that has almost cost them a number of times. And Eita and Yoshida have grown increasingly more uncomfortable and unsatisfied with him calling the shots in this unit. And that is what led to the friction of these guys in R.E.D. Obviously, if you've paid attention to the promotion at all in the past 2 months, we saw Skywalker interject himself into the Dragon Dia versus Dia Inferno feud. We saw him intentionally cost Dragon Dia his mask, and then we have seen his very fast descent into madness over the past month and a half. So that story is a little bit shorter, but nonetheless equally as satisfying as the slow burn we've seen with R.E.D.
Yeah, so it just was something that it came across, like, this felt like classic Dragongate. Like, this was classic Dragongate in 2022. Jay bring up on commentary, but Jason didn't seem so good about this, and also bring up the point that Hyo was the only person who made like a positive comment about anything the Shun has done lately. Really added a nice layer to this match, especially what would happen afterwards.
Yeah, and the post-match promo, that was something that I loved, was, Hyo and Shun get on the mic, and right before Shun turns, Hyo looks at him and he says, "Hey, we're of the same class. We're the class of 2016. I know you better than anybody else. Why are we not teaming with one another?" And it's just another one of those small things, on the surface, Is it a big deal that we know exactly why Shun turned on his team? No, it's not. But to have that little extra layer of, oh yeah, these guys go back to the dojo. These guys debuted together. These guys have the same last name in their real lives. You know, Shun debuted as Shun Watanabe. Hyo debuted as Hyo Watanabe. It just all just adds up into this beautiful thing. And then we saw the Shun turn and by proxy the double turn with Eita and Yoshida, which I will let you explain now.
So immediately in the post match, Shun demanded an apology. Minoura would not apologize. Shun at this point snapped. Like I'm not exaggerating here. He snapped. Hyo calmed him down, as you're talking about, saying, "Why don't you team with me?" And then Eita and Yoshida were like, "You don't have that authority. Eita's the leader of R.E.D." And they all thought about this for a second, and then R.E.D. and Shun Skywalker all turned on Eita and Yoshida, left them laying. Shun has joined R.E.D. R.E.D. has ejected their leader, Eita, and kind of the number two. I would say Kaido Yoshida was at least a storyline number two in recent years of R.E.D. as well. That begins unit shift season, started at that moment. And then as things were getting completely out of control, GM Ryo Saito came out saying, hey, settle down, kids. You know, someone here has not had a match. This show is not over. SB Kento, you have a match right now. And SB Kento tried to beg off. But then the fanfare for a title match played. Then he got furious, and SB Kendo said, like, who am I going to face up against? And Ryo Saito was like, oh, I have the guy you're going to come out. Who's going to face you? And then Dragon Daya's theme hit.
This was all insane, and this is one of those deals where, you know, I wasn't able to watch the show live because I was at work, but I was following along on Twitter and trying to figure out what happened during this segment when I wasn't watching it was an impossible task. So many things were happening, so many things were being tweeted, I couldn't keep up with any of it, but all I know is that all of a sudden I refreshed Twitter and Dragon Daya is rolling through Corkin Hall on a skateboard, and all of a sudden I had more questions at that moment in my entire life than any other time before.
He came off like an absolute star case. Like, Daya's, like, we were like, all right, this kid is good looking. And yes, we know, like, we kind of joke about that. But that is important for this promotion, is having this happen. And I try to think who had this tweet when this happened, Case, that I lost my mind. It was the new, was it Arum had this tweet? The new 4 pillars?
I have not seen this tweet.
All right, I'm going to scroll down and get this tweet. It was perfect in every way. Yeah, it's a room. It was Genki Horiguchi with a surfboard, Don Fuji stealing Ryo Saito's bicycle, M2K with the scooters, and then Dragon Daya with his skateboard, the 4 pillars.
Look, I love Dragon Daya. I love the idea of this character. As someone that loves skateboarding and you know, was very interested and active in skateboarding growing up, this man does not look comfortable on a skateboard, and he needs to go out with Jay and he needs to hit the streets and get a little more comfortable there, because everything about this was really cool with the exception of him actually riding the skateboard. That made me nervous. He was not a natural. They need to do a few more dry runs of him on the skateboard.
Case, you know I'm a sucker for shoulder content.
It's going to be the future class playing soccer against Ben K, and it's going to be Jay and Dragon Daya skateboarding in the streets of Tokyo.
Gaura, my DMs are open. We have ideas.
For this and many, many other things, we have ideas.
but it's something that, like, I think a lot of people miss, like, with Japanese wrestling right now. And Dragon Gate has done such a good job of this. This got a shocked gasp from the crowd. The crowd went nuts for this, like, ignoring restrictions for Daya coming out here, and he felt like a star, if much more so than when he lost his mask. Like, we thought that he would be coming back and looking strong. He had built in angles here. No, he's a capital S star now.
Yeah, I want to phrase this carefully, because I'm not attacking one specific thing, and certainly I'm not even thinking about any specific person and their takes. I mean that. I'm really, this is a very general statement, but throughout the course of 2 years of COVID wrestling, a number of things that have happened in different promotions all across the landscape, and when they're not met with very obvious applause, there's sort of these mental hoops that people have jumped through of, oh, well, it would have gotten over had fans been able to cheer, or would have gotten boos had fans been able to cheer this or that or this or that. But there's been one constant throughout these 2 years now, which is that Dragongate has had a number of moments that have caused people to break protocol. And even more important than that, they've had a number of moments where undeniably you can tell that something is big and that either a star is being born or a star is evolving. And this is one of those moments where, of course it would be great if you had 1,800 people in Corkin Hall and they were all screaming, because I do believe if that was the reality, that is what would happen. This building, under no restrictions, would be losing their ever-loving minds. But even in the environment we got, there's no question that Dragon Dia was over to an absurd degree, and that this resonated with people. And I have become so tired of seeing people jump through hoops of, oh, well, if it wasn't COVID, it would have been this, or if it wasn't COVID, people would have done that. Dragongate has had multiple moments, whether it's the unit disbands match, or Eita versus Doi for the Dreamgate belt, or SB Kento versus JFK this year, where you are watching something historically significant. COVID restrictions be damned, and this was another one of those moments. And obviously I watch this promotion closer than any other, but I certainly have my eyes on every relevant promotion in Japan, which means not all Japan, but everywhere else pretty much. And I just don't feel like any other promotion over the last 2 years has been able to have as many moments as Dragongate has had.
Yeah, and after this Bravegate title run, I did not say, we have a new Open the Bravegate champion. It is Dragon Dia. He won in 90 seconds with the Reptilian. Like, after the run that SB Kento had, this is the right person to hand the torch off to. Like, in the way that SB Kento's title run was like, oh, he'll defend anywhere. He'll go to the small towns and beat their hometown hero, and he will look like an absolute star. That added to Dia winning this match here, and it added to the finish where Yuki Yoshioka came out in the Inferno garb. Hyo is trying to bail out his tag team partner. Instead, Inferno powder attacked Hyo. Hyo takes a great powder attack, just as an aside. Like, he's really good he's not afraid about getting powder in his face. And then we got the Reptilian 1, 2, 3, and Yoshioka and Dia stood proud at the end of the show and challenged for the Twin Gates for the next night. So, I mean, it worked out perfectly. I mean, SB Kento had a legacy-defining Bravegate run, and with all that cachet, that's handed off to Dia, who's now looking like one of the bigger stars in the company.
This is a rare situation where I think SB Kento can lose upward and it's not going to hurt him. This is exactly, you're exactly right. This is the perfect situation for him to lose, because he doesn't lose anything in terms of his aura or his credibility or his star power. This was a car crash. The way I saw it described by a few people was, this whole deal was like if the Attitude Era was actually good. And this is one of those deals where SB Kento, you could tell me that in April or May now he's going to challenge for the Dreamgate belt, and I wouldn't go, but he lost his Bravegate belt earlier. How is this going to work? It's like, no, this was a very logical way for him to lose the title, and it didn't hurt him at all. If there's one logic flaw in this entire thing, it's that Yoshioka came out in the Dia Inferno costume, which it made no sense, but it was also super cool, and sometimes that's the only explanation that's worth giving.
I mean, wrestling is about doing cool stuff and looking like a badass.
Yeah, this is exactly it. It's like, well, he unmasked last month and made it very clear who he was. Why he came back out in that costume only to unveil himself again, I don't know, but it was sick as hell, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. And that was the January 12th, 2022 Corkin case.
Yeah, so the last 3 matches on this show, the Veterans versus Rookie tag, the Triangle Gate match, which bleeds into the double turn with Shun for the first time in his career turning heel, Eita and Yoshida going back as baby faces, or so we thought, as we'll talk about in just a second, for the first time in years, and then the Daya return into the Brave Gate match with SB Kento versus Dragon Daya. That is all essential viewing. That is all on the Dragon Gate network and will be until January 19th with English commentary. If you have not seen it yet, you have to go see it.
Absolutely, and that naturally leads us to the show they had the next night. This will be up on the network until the 20th. Opened off with the Open the Twin Gate Championship match. Hyo and SB Kento, the champions, fail in their first defense. Daya and Yoshioka become the 56th Open the Twin Gate champions when Yuki Yoshioka pins SB Kento with the Frog Splash.
This was a great opener. We talked at the start of the show about how Yuki Yoshioka looks like a god now. I mean, he wore this heavy, full body suit for over a year, and we finally get to see him without a shirt on, and he is maybe in the best shape in the company now. It's so ridiculous how this all worked out. But this was a super fun match. It's really cool to see both Daya and Yoshioka back in the fold.
Yeah, my only bummer about this match is I like SBK and Hyo as a tag team. Like, I thought that there was some juice in this, but it's very clear what they're putting the momentum behind right now. Daya and Yoshioka, though, they look great together, and Daya great at being the babyface and paralleling the big hot tag for Yoshioka to come in and clean up. And the 450 into the Frog Splash, which was nearly across the ring, that Yoshioka did, was phenomenal.
Yeah, Yoshioka will be a Dreamgate champion at some point. And right around the time that he left for his excursion, I really got behind that idea. And I said, if everything goes well, this is somebody who will come back and be a top-of-the-line star, because it certainly looked like he was heading in that direction before he left for Mexico. I don't know if he lost stock under the Daya Inferno hood. I think just because he was presented as a different person, it doesn't ultimately matter. But, there's an entire crop of fans now. I mean, we talked to a lot of people that became fans of Dragon Gate in 2020 that might not realize how good this guy is. And I think this is a great way to bring him back into the fold. And from here, it's onwards and upwards. Again, he is someone who, do I think he's going to be Kai for the belt? No. But do I think 3 or 4 years from now he'll have held the Dreamgate Championship? I do. I really think he's that talented. And with this look, it is only a matter of time.
Yeah, I before he went on excursion, I thought that the wrestler on the roster he'd end up most like was Susumu Yokosuka. Like he was the most solidly consistent worker out of the class of 2016. Like, you had Hyo, who was figuring out, Shun Skywalker, that he never really missed, but there were some times it was kind of creaky. Minoru was so young, Okuda was getting used to it. Benkei was not in the class of 2016, had a different path. But now, like the Dreamgate comp, I don't think that's unfair. I kind of saw him as like a tag team worker, Susumu Yokosuka, not necessarily 2-time Dreamgate champion Susumu Yokosuka, but that might be the world that he lives in now.
Let me ask you a question about Dragon Daya, because when he unmasked, I just assumed that when we saw him again, he would be introducing himself under a new name. And that didn't happen. And not only did that not happen, he now has Dragon Daya painted on a skateboard, which, as we know, is the most permanent relationship you can have, is the name of name on a skateboard. I would like to see him change his name. I don't like the Dragon Daya thing lingering with him. To me, that is a masked character, and he needs to undergo a name change for me to fully let all of this sink in. Am I overreacting to this? Is there legitimacy to that? Where do you stand on his name?
I initially was like, yeah, he has to change his name. But because he's a dragon, they're going to keep with it. And I understand that. But it's something, though, it does go against Lucha tradition. Like, he should have had to given his name, his hometown, and how many years he wrestled. And we never got that. And it would do like this. Maybe they think that him as Dragon Daya has enough cachet to continue afterwards versus him and his real name or whatever wrestling name he decides to take wouldn't. Maybe that's a justification with that. But it's something I'm not firmly set on, I think, the more I talk about it.
I would really like to see a name change at some point. I don't care what it is to. I mean, obviously, you could never predict a name change at this company because there's a guy in this company named Jackie Funky Kamei who was Funky Jackie Kamei, and they somehow changed that. So I don't know what it could be, but I do think a change is necessary at some point.
It'll be interesting to see because I don't know if going Dragon Dia works long term as like a perennial like Dreamgate challenger, whereas him and his real name might. I think that's kind of thing is what really is his new ceiling.
Yeah, that's fair.
After that, we had Kaito Ishida defeating Takumi Hayakawa in 40 seconds with the ankle lock. He was Ishida was accompanied by Eita. They made a big point that they are real R.E.D. They're true R.E.D. And Hayakawa gets run over just once again.
Yeah, this was super fun. I will save my thoughts for Eita and Ishida's future for just a moment when we get to the Eita match. But yeah, this was a brutal mauling, and it was very enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it was a fun 40 seconds. Match 3, UT and Jackie Funky Kamei. Oh, I got the name wrong in it. We were just talking about nonsensical name reviews, name changes, and I just realized in my review I sort of referred to him as Funky Jackie Kamei and not JFK. But it was Young Vibes versus Strong Machine J and Kenichiro Arai. Kamei pinned Arai with the Torbolino Crucifix, and this is going to be a weird time for Strong Machine J, Case, won't it?
Oh, boy. I mean, talk about somebody who has just fallen behind, and it's a bummer because I've shared a few of them. I know I shared the Konomama Ichikawa one on the Open the Voice Gate Twitter, but there's been some daily articles in some online newspaper about Dragongate recently, just, explaining who Ultimo Dragon is, explaining who Sakura Ichikawa is, explaining who Jason Lee is, explaining some of the backstage figures in this company. And one of them was about Strong Machine J and the hardships that he's been through, and his mother passing away from leukemia, and all of these things that it really baby-faced Strong Machine J with me, because I've been a pretty vocal critic of him in the past, but you watch him in this environment, and it's not that he's bad, but he just doesn't fit in right now.
He's just the exact same person he was the day he debuted.
Yeah, no upward trajectory there, which is funny because like this is your kind of match. It's UT and Kamei and Araken, who are three of your guys, and I liked this match way more than you did. In your review, you went 2 3/4. I went 3.5 on this match.
Okay, so sell me on this, because for me, I felt like that Strong Machine J just stuck out so much here, and even though like I like the chemistry that Jay and Arai have, it just kind of, in a way, just like felt I couldn't get over the SMJ hump in this match personally.
So to me, this was completely on the backs of this Natural Vibes team, this JFK and UT combination, and it speaks to just how talented they are, and specifically the strides that Kamei has made, because we both like Araken, but at this point in his career, he certainly has a ceiling, and Strong Machine J is a guy who is capable of having great matches if he's in there with the right guys, but he is not someone by any means that can lead a match at this point in his career. But I thought this was a match that flowed really well. I thought everything was really fluid. I thought the grappling in this match, which is something that Araken is like a sneaky good grappler in my opinion, I thought the grappling in this match was super intriguing. And I just loved that if you think back in time, Mike, think back to last June. There was a match on that Korakuen Hall show, June 3rd. It was Kamei and Gamma versus Araken and Ryo Saito, and that was Kamei's first match as a member of Natural Vibes in Korakuen Hall. He had just returned from injury, and that match was a mess. That was a bad match, and we both came on here and talked about how we were really worried about Kamei and whether or not, because of that injury, if he was going to be able to wrestle his same style, what does he look like in Natural Vibes? Was it all just a stroke of luck his rookie year, and now he wasn't going to be any good? And you see 6 months later, like, oh no, this guy can actually carry a match with two guys at this point far below his level, and he can make it into something that to me is entirely worth watching. Again, 3.5-star little tag match just because of the physicality on display and the way they work this. I don't know. I just loved this match.
It's something where I should, because you're absolutely right. This does have 3 of my guys in here. I should be the one defending the match to you, but I just couldn't get past that. Like, and it's something that's a real shame because I like Strong Machine J. He just, he's like mired in cement, and if it sticks out now, it really does, especially against someone like Kamei, who is 2 years his junior, really like coming off like a star in SMJ. He feels like a veteran. He feels like he should be doing these matches with Masaki Mochizuki and Don Fuji and Shuji Kondo. Like that's what it kind of feels like with them.
I thought UT and Kamei were so good in this match. This is, one of those deals where they talk about how Flair could have wrestled a broomstick and had a 4-star match. UT and Kamei could have wrestled 2 broomsticks, and I think I still would have given it 3.5. This wasn't anything that Arkin or Strong Machine J really brought to the table, but I thought the Natural Vibes duo was just so good in this match that it completely suckered me in.
After that, we had a high-end and Ultimo Dragon versus veterans. It was Dragon Kid, Benkei, Keisuke Okuda, and Kagetora and Ultimo Dragon, defeating Masaki Mochizuki, Don Fuji, Shuji Kondo, Yasushi Kanda, and Gamma when Benkei pinned Kanda with a spear. This was the Record League match, as I put it in the review. This was let's get some exercise because we just had a very heavy meal.
I liked that they gave so much focus to Benkei in this match because, Ben is someone who I've told people in the past, hey, relax, Benkei's going to be okay. I think a lot of fans, including ourselves, got really wrapped up in the narrative of him beating Pac, and I really thought he would be a guy who would carry this promotion into the future. That has not seemed to work out, but he is an upper mid-card / main event tier star. He is a B in the tier of players if Yamato and Doi and Aito are in the A tier. It was nice seeing him get so much focus in this match and look so dominant because you have to think Kai's going to beat Yoshida, and if he beats Shimizu, it does seem like Benkei versus Kai would be a natural direction they would go. So if they can heat him up for that now, I am going to be very much in favor of that match when it eventually happens.
Yeah, I think that those two just mesh incredibly well, especially with Dreamgate champion Kai. I think that is something that you could easily pull the trigger for a quick Memorial Gate defense if you need it.
Yeah, that's a good... Well, okay, yeah. So it doesn't look like the Dreamgate title is going to be defended at Memorial Gate this year if they're going from the the early February defense to the winner of that goes into Champion Gate as the challenger. But Dead or Alive could be Benkei versus Kai.
Yeah, it could be Benkei versus Kai. We could get our triannual Let's Beat Dragon Kid in his hometown match there too. But I like Benkei and Kai more than Kai versus Dragon Kid, so let's go with that. That's the high-end member I want at that, if my whole idea isn't right.
I'm into it.
All right, and then after that, we had a Natural Vibes and Gurukun Mask team defeating Masquerade's Jason Lee and La Estrella along with Takuma Fujiwara. Shimizu squished Fujiwara with the aided Big Boss Press. And if you have a match where you have the Big Boss and the Big Boss of Okinawa, and you get Gurukun Mask to join into Party Anthem, I am going to have a great time. I thought that this was awesome, and Fujiwara is someone getting a chance to see him wrestle against this group of guys really shows the potential in him.
All I could think watching this match was, this podcast certainly has its guys we like and the guys we champion. And watching Gurukun Mask wrestle Jason Lee, I realized just how open the Voice Gate core this match was. This was one for the real heads. This was one for all of our fans. These are two guys we put over more than any other podcast, and I'm so glad this match got to happen. It was so enjoyable.
It was truly sick. In the post-match, Susumu called out Kness, and that brought out GM Ryo Saito, who set up the retirement celebrations for Kness. So the deal with Kness is that he can wrestle one more match, but with his health, that he's not going to be able to do a full retirement tour where they will go back to his old gimmicks, but they're still going to incorporate them. So in February, he will be back as Darkness Dragon, managing and accompanying the original M2K. So that's Mochizuki, Susumu, and Kanda. So that is actually something set up for the February Korakuen. And then on the March Korakuen, the first time ever, we get a Jimmy's revival.
Yeah, that's going to be sick. I'm looking forward to both of those things. If you, I've mentioned this on the show somewhat recently. When Kness announced his retirement, I threw this out there, but I get the impression we're going to get more ears on this show than normal. If you are a Dragongate Network subscriber, go to Dangerous Gate 2015, watch the Jimmy's versus Mad Blanky unit disbands match, and the finish, which Kness plays a part in, is one of the loudest pops I have ever heard in Dragongate.
Yeah, it was insane. Otis City Gymnasium was just on fire there. It's definitely on a required viewing list. Next match, KZ and the Hashi brothers defeated Yamato, Shoya Sato, and Ryo Fuda. So Ryo Fuda, okay enough to wrestle the next day. KZ pinned Fuda with a running elbow smash. And now the Hashi brothers they're managing to get wins, Case. I know you're really wanting that time that Riki has Alcatraz in and gets the direct fall, but they're starting to stack up a couple of wins, even if they're not directly involved in the fall.
Yeah, this match was sick as hell. I really liked the chemistry that KZ and Fuda had. Obviously, anytime Yamato and KZ get in the ring, that's going to be an element for success. And then you had the Hashi brothers really battling it out with Sato here, which I thought was an interesting dynamic. That big chop battle between Riki and Sato was really exciting to me. 6 guys I'm just really into at the moment. Even I'll throw Yamato in the mix just because this was something new for Yamato. We don't typically see him team with these youngsters, with these rookies. He's normally off doing his own thing in some sort of prolonged feud. This was Yamato having fun, and that's the Yamato that I like, so I was really into this.
Yeah, this was a blast, especially Fuda and KZ. Like Fuda right now is ranked 6th, but he does have potential there. And it's nice to see him immediately get back at it. Riki and Yamato, that is something that was really a whole lot of fun here. And it was a nice thing, at least in my mind, there might still be a giant 6-on-6 match, but I felt like them stomping the shit out of Don Fuji after Don Fuji decided he was going to try to get more out of the rookies after winning that match the night before. It felt like that this is actually not necessarily the big step 2 that you talk about, but this is just inching forward, being able to wrestle with more featured wrestlers on the roster, and they acquitted themselves quite well there.
Yeah, we have yet to see, again, with the exception of that Fuda versus Akuda match, which had a number of things going against it, any combination of veterans that these guys have been put in the ring with. Obviously, there's that easy sort of match structure to feed off of when it's Mochizuki and Kanda and Kondo and Fuji, but even when you put them in there with the Kagatoras and the KZs and the Horiguchis and the Susumus, this class has not missed a step yet, and it's remarkable to see. I mean, at some point, these guys are going to falter, and we saw it with Fuda, we'll see it with Sato and with Fujiwara and with Hayakawa, but for the most part, it has just not happened yet, which is an awesome thing to say.
Yeah, and it's something that's going to be a really fun thing to watch as we go into February. After that, we had semi-main event. It was Eita and Yosuke Santa Maria. They went to a no contest as R.E.D. attacked all 3 of them, as Eita was rearing back for Imperial Uno after he hit a low blow. R.E.D. was able to pretty much take care of true R.E.D. there, but then Maria came to Eita's defense. Eita is her first true love. That is her one true pair. And slapped down every member of R.E.D., but Eita was just not interested and stormed out. So
you're probably more equipped to do this than I am. For newer viewers that missed the millennials, because that was, they ended at this point 6 years ago. Can you briefly, and if you can't, that's okay, but can you briefly fill in listeners on the Eita Maria relationship?
All right. So both of them, if they're not from the same year's class, they are complementary. They're in the same era. But Eita, along with T-Hawk and Lindemann, went to Mexico for an excursion in 2013. They came back as millennials, and the gimmick by millennials is that they were obviously lucha-inspired going to their excursion, but more importantly, they were out to war against anyone who was born before 1990. So that's what being a millennial is in Dragongate. Case, I'm not a millennial. I'm either a boomer or Gen Xer because I am born before 1990. So soon after, the wrestler now known as Yosuke Santa Maria was under other gimmicks and became and was Super Shenlong 3 which Shenlong is a character that doesn't exist anymore in Dragon Gate. There's been 2 other Super Shenlongs. One of them was Shinobu. The other one is the wrestler now known as Problem Dragon. And Shenlong lost a mask match. I think that was like the unit must disband. Loser loses their mask or hair match, the Akatsuki versus Mad Blanky one, I think.
Yes, that was the Akatsuki versus Mad Blanky unit disbands 2 count versus 3 count rules match, where it was a handicap match too, where Akatsuki only needed a 2 count to win, and Mad Blanky obviously needed the 3 count. One of the greatest matches in the history of Dragon Gate.
Yeah, so then Shenlong 3 started to be called, and this was the entire ring name. The former Super Shenlong 3, Yosuke Watanabe. That was the unmasked Yosuke gimmick up until Millennials happened. Yosuke caught a look at Ada, discovered her true self, became Yosuke San Maria, and all the boy craziness about Yosuke San Maria and that facet of the character comes from the love of Ada. And she's tired of seeing Ada beat down, and she's going to try to get back her man, basically. I think that's a fair way of putting it.
Yes,
Decades.
no, 100% well done. I'm glad you did that and not me. We can talk a little bit about where we think certain guys are going to go, because I know we have differing opinions on at least one member of the roster and their future. But I will say, on a personal level, as a fan of this promotion, Eita and Yoshida going face is the most exciting thing imaginable. I have been a very vocal critic of Eita, and oddly enough, a very big supporter of Yoshida, since they've both been in R.E.D, but I think this is the right move for both of them. I think this is going to be huge, and I think Maria is going to turn them face, and it's going to be a beautiful thing, Mike.
Yeah, it's something where, like, I think that that having Maria, and I do think that this is going to be the nucleus of a new unit going forward. I think that it just works. I think Eita is someone who is ready for that face turn. Yoshida maybe had a little bit more tread on the heel tire, but I think it's important because, like, Yoshida was getting huge face responses before he was the Christmas surprise.
Yes, that is it, because he turned heel at the end of 2019, which then quickly led into generational warfare, which then quickly led into COVID, which then led into the breakneck schedule of 2020. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle that his 2019, once he joined Maximum, he was teaming with Dragon Kid, and he was teaming with Naruki Doi, and he was teaming with Jason Lee, and we were losing our minds at this guy who I always liked. Yoshida. Yamamura and him graduated from the dojo at the same time. All eyes were on Yamamura. If he wouldn't have gotten injured, he would have been, maybe the biggest star in this company. But I was always an Yoshida guy. I just liked the way he moved around the ring, and he went from being a high flyer to, as it says in his entrance theme, just a kick boy. And while we certainly have seen the results of that as a heel, of him as this brooding, vicious, brutal kind of guy, on the flip side, he can be a fiery, energetic babyface who does that same offense. And that is a winning formula that we've now seen, even if just because of when that run happened, and then when he turned, it seems like that face turn was many, many moons ago, when in reality it wasn't, and we know it can be a successful run again.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because he had that near year-long run as Bravegate champion as a heel. And I don't know.
Yeah, because he won the belt from Susumu in November of 2019 as a face,
right.
And then a month later turned heel, and then he had that great match with Jason Lee at Final Gate. That was kind of his first big match as a heel. So yeah, that entire run really was under the R.E.D guys.
Yeah, and it was a big deal because he won the Bravegate in Osaka. He's a hometown Osaka guy, and that's another reason why he was probably getting his first Dreamgate match at Champion Gate, because it was also in Osaka. They love making sure the hometown guys get beat, but it also gets people to the shows. But it's going to be interesting because Yoshida worked really well as a heel number 2, but with the way that this unit shuffle looks right now, I'm just going to pull up my spreadsheet, and the people that I think are realistic add-ons to that face unit, unless somehow this gets merged with the House of Boys, or if they pull Masaki Mochizuki, or Dragon Kid decides to forgive Eita and turn on high end, it's I don't think it's a weak unit because Eita is such a big star in the company. But those three, that's a rough core to start with. You've got some slots to fill out.
I think you're underestimating the value of Yoshida a little bit. I also think Masquerade is going to come to an end, and they're probably going to get Jason Lee. I think of the three that are left,
that changes things. Yeah.
There was a lot of talk in the Discord today about, well, where's Jason Lee going to go? And it's like, wherever. Like, it doesn't matter. He's going to be able to fit into any unit. Now, I don't think there's an opening in high end. I don't think there's an opening in natural vibes. So that sort of leads him to whatever the new babyface unit is. And as long as, they don't have some outrageous gimmick that for some reason he wouldn't be able to do, no, he can slide in anywhere. Like, he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him in the future at all. So I see this as Eita, Yoshida, Maria, Jason Lee, and somebody else. And like I've said on this podcast before, when Mike and I in October, we did an episode where we kind of built our ideal units for the future going forward. And my big thing was I want a babyface Eita. Mike, let me read you some of the matches on the last card when Eita was a babyface. Okay, this was November 8th, 2017, Gate of Evolution in Korakuen Hall. This is where he turned heel in the main event and mercifully ended Overgeneration. But here are some of the matches on the show just to show you the amount of time that has passed and how much this company has changed since Eita was leading the heel unit. The dark match 0 not televised on this show. Punch Tominaga defeated Kaito Ishida. Match number 2. Or, I'm sorry, this was actually the opening match. This was match number 1. And this one, I'm just reading for your sake as you'll pop for it. Don Fuji, Mondai Ryu, and Mysterioso Jr. defeated... Mike, they defeated Kotoka, Shun Skywalker, and Yuki. Match number 2 on this show. And pay attention to the win and the loss here. Gamma and Kness defeated Big R Shimizu and Kagatora. There was also a 6-man tag on the show. Yoshino Doi and Horiguchi defeated BB Hulk, Yosuke Santa Maria, and Jason Lee. This was a pre-Maximum era Jason Lee on this show. And then the final 2 matches, Shima and Ricochet in his Dragongate farewell. Shima and Ricochet versus KZ and Yamato. And then the main event, Berserk versus Overgeneration, which wasn't even Overgeneration. It was Lindemann, Shingo, T-Hawk. So those 3 guys out of the company. Yoshida and Kanda against Dragon Kid, Eita, Mochizuki, Ryo Saito, and Susumu. So this was actually a month after the unit disbands match, where Overgeneration, again, mercifully ended. But this was a hodgepodge of legends and Eita, where Eita ended up turning on Dragon Kid. That really kickstarted that feud. But a show with Kaito Ishida losing the dark match, Mysterioso Jr. on the winning side over Shun Skywalker, Gamma and Kness beating Big R Shimizu, a pre-Maximum era Jason Lee, and Ricochet's farewell. That was the last time Eita was a babyface.
So, Overgeneration still existed at this time case. Overgeneration didn't disband until after everyone left. Like, the disbands match was like Punch Tominaga and Gamma and Kaito Ishida and Dragon Kid.
Look, we haven't forgotten about it. We will revisit Overgeneration on a podcast at some point. That is an idea that we threw out there on the air, and now I feel like we have to do it.
July 5th, 2018. So they kept the husk of that unit going 3 months after it died.
Wait, holy shit. That's when they disbanded?
Yeah, they disbanded late. They disbanded to Antios.
Oh my god. Oh, it's worse than I thought.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. It was wild.
But anyways, I think there's so much value in this Eita and Maria pairing. I mean, it's not exactly a continuous thread, but that is, at this point now, we're looking at a decade almost, 9 years of storytelling that is going to get us to this Eita turn. Ishida can be a successful babyface. I have no concerns about him, no reservations about him turning face. I am curious, and maybe you're about to get to this. You want to talk about the R.E.D., the fact that these teams are now fighting over the name of R.E.D.?
Yeah, so this is mostly on social media. So we have Eita and Ishida saying, we are R.E.D. I'm the leader. Yoshida's my number 2. You can't just like Ada actually said, aren't you reborn about this? So they are considering, I'm calling them true R.E.D. or real R.E.D. And then you have the heels that still exist. So you have Hyo, SBK, Kai, Hulk, and Shun Skywalker. Incredibly small for a heel unit.
Yeah, I am not into this. I was excited about the Shun turn because I thought it meant that we could finally retire the R.E.D. name and, more importantly, retire the R.E.D. colors, which it date back to Berserk in the summer of 2015. I've been reviewing Dragongate on this website since July of 2015, which was the last month of Mad Blankie's existence. So I've covered generational shifts. I've covered this company almost imploding after the OWE split. I've seen a lot of things in my day, and I have primarily seen one heel unit. I would like that to change. I would like to see some fresh colors and some fresh blood infiltrate these heel units. I don't think R.E.D. works under the Eita, Yoshida, Maria name. I don't want to see them carry on that lineage, and I want the heels to change name and to change colors as soon as possible.
I don't think that we're going to be seeing R.E.D. as a unit very long. I would be stunned if by Dangerous, or not by Dangerous Gate, Dead or Alive in May, if we still have an R.E.D. and a true R.E.D. I think that this is just placeholding for right now. They're almost done with their month. I think February, we'll see them announce that the heel unit's going to change, maybe. I mean, we only have 2 matches announced for the February Korakuen, but I would be stunned if by, not even Dead or Alive, if we enter March with still R.E.D. and true R.E.D., I would be stunned. Like, I think that they're going to try to get it moving, try to sell some merch. I mean, Ada turning face, you're going to have some new stuff to sell for him. So I don't think it's going to be long.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, we've talked about on this podcast about how big of a merch mover Eita is, and that is as a heel, and now you turn him face again. I'm so excited at Eita becoming a face again. I really think that is just the facelift that this promotion needs, and I'm all for it.
Let me throw this one unit idea out here, and I might be way off on this. Eita, Yoshida, Maria, Riki, Ishin.
Great. If that's the route they decide to go, I'm all in on that.
You might want to have another top line person. You might want one more because you have your bottom line done. You have your tag workers in there. You have your young guys. You have your main eventers. But you might want one more person so you can, unless you're going to just rocket pack the Ishins up into the main event.
Yeah, what you
or
need
the Hashis,
there,
sorry.
What you need there, and I don't know who exactly fills that role other than this guy, but that's where you want that Kagetora level star, that true mid-carder, which might be Jason Lee, of a guy that, can beat almost anybody on the roster, but can also lose to anybody on the roster, because Eita's your top star. Again, I think Yoshida has real, legitimate star potential to him, and a track record of being a star with his Bravegate run and that Dreamgate challenge versus Skywalker last year, which, if my memory serves me correct, given the COVID restrictions at the time, that did a pretty good number, but I'm not 100% sure in saying that, but that is my memory. The Ahashis, we know they're great. They're going to be great. Maria's interesting, she got hurt at the end of 2019 in a really ugly injury that had happened on a Hokkaido show. So
that ankle, yeah.
Yeah. So she was wrestling Kanda in a singles match, and she went to do a springboard drop kick. And if memory serves me correct, she basically landed with one leg behind her. She kind of landed on one of her legs, and it was this really nasty injury. And if you look at her output then, I think that was, either the end of 2018 or the end of 2019. Now, it was the end of 2018 because she ended up wrestling in some of the Toryumon reunion matches in 2019. She has not been the same since. Maria was somebody who, during her Bravegate run and during her time in the Millennials, she's not the greatest worker in the world, but she's capable of having great matches. And I thought even in the match with Eita, which was her selling the entire time, she really doesn't move around the ring all that well anymore. And I'm all for her being implemented into this unit. I'm all for her having a story to tell. But I do worry that her in ring, because of that injury, she's never been the same. And I don't know if she can hang with everybody the way that she used to.
Yeah, I guess like she'd be the person you expect that at the ankle. I mean, that's a rough thing to do, especially with her offense. You know, with a lot of springboards, a lot of it's based off of rope running. Like it definitely, you have seen like a change in focus with her there. So
yeah, that was a really nasty injury. I mean, the gif of that I remember being particularly gross.
Yeah, I remember it vividly. As soon as you brought up the image, you brought up the injury case, I remember the indoor soccer arena and her going down hard. It's not a pretty one. If you're a sicko and you like watching injuries, it's a pretty strong injury. The main event, unless you got anything else to talk about.
No, let's talk about the main event.
Main event was R.E.D, Kai, BB Hulk, and the debut of Shun Skywalker. Worth noting that Shun is still wearing all masquerade colors. During the attack in the previous match, he was wearing the masquerade mask. He has to keep that masquerade mask. It works for his character. But they went up against Naruki Doi, Takashi Yoshida, and Naruki Doi got his wish. He teamed with Kota Minoura. Yoshida got the direct win over Kai with a cyber bomb. Don't see a lot of cyber bombs these days, Case.
No, you don't, for better or worse.
And I thought this was really kind of like another performance. And I know I kind of scored this show kind of hard just because this felt like, you know, really just like it was a great watch, but the matches weren't hitting for me the way it did. But this match was another display of Naruki Doi being one of the best tag team wrestlers of this generation. I mean, the way that he just seamlessly like added Kota Minoura into his tag act was perfect.
Yeah, in terms of star ratings, I'm actually much higher on this show than you. 3.5 on the opener, 3.5 on match number 3, that Natural Vibes versus Araken and Strong Machine J-Tag, 3.25 on the 10-man, and then 3 3/4 on the Gurukun Mask 6-man and the Yamato and KZ versus the Rookies trios match. Here, it's not a match that I loved. Again, I get the Doi, or not the Doi, but the Yoshida versus Kai thing, but I really don't think they've shown any signs of great chemistry. I don't know. I didn't love this match, and I would like to hear your proposal for the next few months of Naruki Doi and the direction you think he's going to go, because I don't think we see eye to eye on this.
I think that the House of Hot Boys is going to happen. It just seems like that they're building this up so much that it's either going to happen or it's going to be a big Doi turn. I don't think if Doi turns heel with the current group of R.E.D, that doesn't solve the issues I have with R.E.D right now, or the heel unit. Whereas they need more people to have undercard matches, and they need a fall post, they need a lost post there. So adding Doi there, actually, it would be good to have more people to bounce off of Hyo and SBK on promos, because like those are the two that they're going to have to rely on promos, other than Kai going bye to people. So
maybe Shun. I mean, Shun, we've seen him turn his talking around.
Yeah, Shun is, but I also think that Shun's going to really dial into the psychological break. So it will be good mic work. Like, he's definitely gone from a bad talker to someone, at least with this character, that I find very interesting. But I don't think you can rely on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Shun can't exactly do a show. Well, I don't know. Has he been doing show closing promos? I think he could do a show closing promo in this character.
He has been, and it was him being the oblivious, oh, Masquerade is fine, I'm the only one that wants to talk. Remember, he had 3 microphones at Kobe Symbol Hall.
Some of the greatest photos I've ever seen. The thing with Doi, and it seems to be the take that I've read a ton this morning, is that Doi is going to turn heel. He's going to join the R.E.D group. I think that is a mistake if that happens. Now, I love Doi. I talked at length this summer about how I thought they were going to hit the ground running with Doi as a main character in the latter half of this year of 2021. And then it didn't happen. And one of the things that I proposed was Doi turning heel. And at the time, I was very into that move because, I thought R.E.D needed, maybe some fresh blood, but also because I didn't imagine Shun Skywalker turning heel. But if we take what Yamato said and Jay mentioned it on commentary during his match on this show. If we take what Yamato said at face value, that his last Dreamgate run was inspired by Akira Tozawa and Shingo Takagi, and the fact that Yamato is now 40 years old, and as you've talked about on this episode, about how so many guys on this roster are world-class talents ready to carry this promotion on their back, and they're under the age of 30, Yamato looked at that title win as his last gasp of hope, as the last time that he will be the top dog in this company, and that for better or worse, the youth are here and they are ready to move into position and become the featured acts of this company. Naruki Doi is 41 years old. Naruki Doi was a member of the T2P class, and while he is still a world-class wrestler, Naruki Doi turning heel and now, in my opinion, would be stealing the spotlight from SB Kento and Hyo and Shun Skywalker, and I think that would be a horrible mistake. They don't need him. SB Kento can talk, Hyo can talk, Skywalker and this character can talk. They can all wrestle. They do not need Naruki Doi. I am all for his Hot Boys unit happening. I think turning him heel would be a giant mistake.
Yeah, and you brought up SB Kento. I think that, you know how I feel about my checklist of the things I want to see from SB Kento, and he keeps on checking off the boxes each time. Him leading a heel unit is much more important for the next 15 years of the promotion than Naruki Doi gets one last heel run in my opinion. So I think that it does a disservice having Doi turned heel, but I just can't. It's Naruki Doi. You always have to acknowledge the possible heel turn with him. And
especially when they're promoting his current act as Doi Yoshi 2.0.
Right, yeah, but I just Doi. If this was 3 years ago, Doi doing the heel turn on Yoshida would have been perfect. Now he's at a point where, it would be great to see one more heel run with him, but not at this time.
I agree. I think the bulk of this R.E.D. story, even with Hulk and Kai still staying in the group, it's the youth. It's Hyo and SB Kento disagreeing with Eita and Ishida, who are of that similar generation. I don't think you can throw in another old guy into that mix. I just don't think Doi fits. I don't think Doi needs to be there right now. Let him do his thing. Let him and Minoura team. Let him and Yoshida team. Have Doi be a twin gate, triangle gate guy. He doesn't need to be a main eventer. I don't think the heel unit needs him. I would be very cautious about wanting Doi to turn heel right now. I think in the long term it would do more harm than good.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things you have to look down the road, as we were saying. Other things on the match itself, Shun shoving the mask of Masquerade into Minoura's face. That's one of those chef kiss photos.
Shun is just on another level right now. I mean, the comparison I made a few weeks ago was, if the first 5 years of his career were like Bryan Danielson's 2002 through 2005, where he was a world-class wrestler, but there wasn't a ton of depth to him, we're now seeing his 2006 Bryan Danielson run, where he becomes the complete package and one of the most must-see wrestlers in the entire world.
No, absolutely. And it was fantastic to see. And it's going to be really fun to see how this all shakes up, because Eita and Ishida came out to taunt Kai in the final moments. That's what set up, really, the Cyberbong. Takashi Yoshida did the formal challenge. Ryo Saito said that was fine. Let's look at February for it. But just so you all know, my big opponent for Kai was Big Boss Shimizu, and he's still going to be a possible contender. Now we know, or we believe, that's going to be the plan going into Champion Gate. Naruki Doi in the post-match was bothered that Yoshida was focused on the title and not on getting Kota Minoura to join Doi. And, that's Naruki Doi. It's all about him all the time. And then Kota Minoura was asked again to join Doi. And he said, I still have a lot of things going on here. I still got to figure things out. So, no. And that was it for the doubleheader in Korakuen.
Yeah, so we'll see more of Minoura and Doi, I would assume, at the Korakuen Hall in February. There's a lot more to unfold here. We're by no means done with the unit shakeup, but this was one of the most eventful weeks in Dragon Gate in many, many years. And it certainly seems like eyeballs that had drifted away from this promotion either in 2017 when quality dipped, or 2018 when things got dire, or COVID when they just stopped paying attention to Japanese wrestling. It certainly seems like a lot of those eyeballs are back.
Yeah, and we will be here every week and doing a lot of stuff to help people on board onto Dragongate, because this is the fun stuff. Like, you know how everyone's like, what's the best time to start watching Dragongate? Best time to subscribe to Dragongate Network? Well, it's right now. It could have been yesterday, but it is right now. This is some of the most exciting stuff in wrestling and stuff that only Dragongate does. You know, I mean, whenever you this is the thing that like everyone gets to speculate on. Okay, what's going to be the new heel unit? What's going to come out of Masquerade? Will the Hot Boys happen? What's the deal with futures? Like, this is the fun stuff, like speculating and everything.
Is there any angle of these shows that we did not touch on? Is there anything that we missed that we still need to break down? We talked about, again, all those things you mentioned, where we think certain guys are going to end up. I'm not sold on the Doi heel turn, among other things. Is there anything that we missed?
Other than I think that we need to further soak in Gurukun Mask doing party anthem dance.
God, I love that man. He is so good. Gurukun
Mask, come on to Open the Voice Gate. Be the first wrestler on Open the Voice Gate is Gurukun Mask. All right, Case, unless you got anything else, let's get out of here.
Yeah, no, that's all I've got. Like I said, written reviews of these shows are up at voicesofwrestling.com. I did the first show, Mike did the second show. Look in the near future for more written content. If you're a newer fan of Dragongate, first of all, at Open Voice Gate on Twitter or the Voices of Wrestling Discord. We can help you out if you have questions on how to navigate the Dragongate network, if you have questions on the history of this promotion, maybe certain things that you want to figure out that you can't find the answer to. We can help you out. This is a podcast and a community resource. If you are lost on something, Mike and I are here to help, and the people in the Discord are here to help. That is the Voices of Wrestling Discord, which you can find over at voicesofwrestling.com. So please, if you're a new fan, take advantage of this podcast, of our website, and of the community at large.
Yeah, and if anything, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up for Open the Voice Gate in 2022, along with the written stuff, so keep it locked. You can follow us again on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya, 2 eyes like Don Fuji. Thanks for listening to Open the Voice Gate. We'll be back next week for more comings and goings in the 2022 Unit Shuffle. Take care, everyone.